Hey there, comic friends. I'm Travis, and it's the Comic Book Roundtable. Yay! And I actually have guests with me this week after being gone for a few weeks. This week we have back with us Damien, Sleepy Reader 666. How's it going, sir?
Great to be here.
Awesome.
Joining a crowd.
Right. And we have back with us Mike, Sergeant America. How's it going, sir?
It's going well. I'm glad to see the petition didn't hold. Neither the Game of Thrones ending will be changed, nor will I be kept off this show. So
awesome. So as we're talking right now, I am looking. A pop-up just came up on the Hangout for us, and it is telling me this Hangout on Air is live, and then it says Hangout on Air is going away later this year.
Oh,
yes, I heard about that.
For quick streaming, try YouTube webcam. Well, YouTube webcam, will you be able to host a group of people?
I believe not. I think it's just one person.
So this may be, as we roll this in, this may be the coffin, the nail in the coffin for the Comic Book Roundtable, unless I figure out something else.
I was reading an article about it, and they vaguely talked about third-party apps you could get to do Hangouts, but they didn't sound too confident as to whether those are really going to work or not.
Right.
So there might be plugins that you can get to do it, but I'm not sure.
Oh. So, I guess I'll be exploring that because this is all new to me. I have not been paying attention, I guess. And
my other thought is that YouTube often does something and then backs away from it and goes back to some old thing.
Right.
So I'm hoping they change their mind. But
yes, same here.
Seems not to do this.
Right. Not to be able to. Yeah, but they don't really want us to communicate, right? I mean, it feels like they've been working on that for a lot of years. You know, with us not being able to do video replies, not being able to just kind of keep trimming stuff away. And I know this was all part of the whole Google Plus thing in a way, is how this came about.
Right.
But I would think this would be one of the features they'd want to keep. I mean, I don't understand.
I would think so too.
I don't understand why to get rid of it. What would be the rationale behind it? I mean, is there something we're doing on these live shows that they don't have the ability to
monetize?
They can't monetize it well enough or or watch how you're doing it to monetize it. Yeah,
sure.
I assume. I mean, it involves their servers. So maybe the cost versus the amount they can monetize it isn't enough.
No.
But I think, Google also, they do things just because they think it's a good idea, whether or not anybody else does.
Right.
They do it anyway.
Right.
So it's just hard to know, really.
Huh. Well, okay. Well, like I said,
they'll wait a year and make it a paid service. That'll be the other thing.
Oh yeah, move it over to YouTube Red or whatever. Well, that'll end that too. I guess this may force me to go to Twitch for real, which will make Kirk FM happy as could be because he's always harassing me about going to starting a Twitch channel, because then you can dump it over into everybody will just have to learn how to find it on Twitch. I have.
Can you then, I mean, on Twitch, isn't the video kind of temporary? Can you have an archive of videos?
Well, but my understanding is that you can then dump that Twitch video after the fact onto YouTube. Because that's how
if Kirk does that, I've lost track of his channel because I've never seen him do it.
Yeah, he has. I mean, occasionally it populates over anyway. I'd have to ask him to know for sure, but it didn't seem like it was.
I lost his channel.
It doesn't seem like it was that long ago that he'd gone back doing some videos and it showed back up. What was his channel? We're talking about his channel. It was My Mom's Basement. What was it? Or the shows were called My Mom's Basement or something. I can't remember.
I can't remember what the channel was called.
Yeah. So we are plugging Kirk
on YouTube. I mean, on Twitter, but I don't know.
Right. At any rate, great channel if you can find it.
Later, he can leave his comments.
Yes. Yeah. So that
Kirk,
may be.
Please on Twitter, post it.
Yes. At any rate, I'll have to figure that out if that's what it comes down to and whatnot, because I refuse to give up the show. At any rate, let's talk some comics because that's why we're here. So we're going to talk Marvel books first. We're going to talk this week. Maybe we'll talk prior weeks because it's been a few weeks since we've been on to talk books in general. So what do we want to talk about Marvel wise this week? Did anybody else get Marvel books this last week?
I did get quite a few.
Yeah.
But Captain, did you Sarge? I mean,
I was hoping for a promotion.
Yeah.
Did you read any? Because I know you're the Marvel guy.
Yeah, and I pretty much quit, like you've been saying, because I don't want to touch my comic and destroy it.
Yes.
The last one I picked up, I think, was number 2 of the Agents of Atlas, which I really loved the original series. And now this one is all Asian cast. It's all, I believe, Asian written, Asian drawn, Asian editors to give it that diversity feel. And it's great, but I know very few of the characters, and I feel like there's 24 people that they're trying to talk about in this book. So I don't know half of them. Their story is extended way beyond, because I'm just having so much trouble remembering who people are. So when they bring them back up, I barely have any knowledge of them. So I did not pick up, I think, number 3. I'm debating it. And I believe it just was extended from a 6 series to a 12, but I may be wrong. It may just be during the War of Realms.
Mhm.
So, but I like it. I mean, it's solid house art. It's good, decent writing. It's just, I don't know any of these people, and I don't care when you're trying to give me 24 over 6 people.
So they're not giving you enough background information on them if you're not well steeped in these characters, which I don't know at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the big story is Amadeus Cho. They're trying to push into a leadership role, but I mean, he knows how to Hulk smash. He has still got the Hulk powers, which then makes him downplay his intelligence, and I've kind of been upset by that. And it's got Silk from the Spider-Man series, and I believe Camilla Khan are the 3 that I know. And then, like I said, there's at least a dozen or more other people who they've been introducing, and it's that kind of thing where, you know, everybody has to fight to make the team, and you're trying to pull people in one at a time, and it just has been too much for me. I'm not excited, and I was a big fan of Agents of Atlas. I like the old 50s feel that they had of them. So I'm not sure that I'm collecting anymore. If I do, I'm going to try and find them in the cheap books.
You got to wonder why they even call it Agents of Atlas at this point.
It is, was it Jimmy Shue, the main guy? Yeah. Okay. So he is the one who's gathering everybody, and he's kind of like handing over the name to him.
Oh, so they're actually doing kind of a legacy thing, then they're passing the baton on to somebody else?
Yes. Yeah.
I always kind of like those stories. They don't last, but
and I would say I would too if it was more concise, because I think the original Agents of Atlas was just 6 people, so that would make sense. But it's just too many, and they're just pulling in more, and I don't know when they're going to stop.
That is weird. It's almost like they do some of these series knowing it's not going to last very long, so they just don't put the effort into it or something.
Right.
In some cases, they put more effort because it's going to be short, but other times, not very much effort at all.
I think some of it is they're waiting to see who is the big hit character, who's going to stick, who's going to shine.
Yeah, that might be.
Yeah. You know, I guess because it's a tie-in to the War of the Realms, then it may have more relevance to that whole larger, you know, whatever kind of a thing. Or this is just an excuse to parade around some characters for a while. You know, I guess. I don't know.
It's funny how we're often just guessing at their motivations. It's not obvious. Why are you doing this book? It's not obvious.
Right. Or the comic book commenter says they just wanted to put out another #1. That's why they did it.
Well, that's definitely a big strategy.
Yeah.
Some of it may be because it's so Asian themed. I mean, all the war that they're fighting is in like Southeast Asia and the islands around there. I don't know if they're trying to reach out for another market, if they're hoping that whether it be Asian American people, or whether it be other people from the
Over
Asian
in Asia,
continents.
yeah. That might be a thing, and they throw it up against the wall, see if it sticks. If it does, they'll have something to sell around the world. And
right. If somebody's suddenly excited by that makeup of that team or somebody within that team, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So late invite. We've got Comic to Comic here with us. Camera issues or whatever, but he can still talk, right? Maybe.
His mic is muted at the moment.
Oh, okay.
I thought I saw a little mute sign. Yeah.
He does look pretty good there, though. That's exactly how I remember him.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know. It's like it flashes like he's trying to talk, like he's talking, but it's not. I'm not hearing him.
I'm not hearing him. I'm seeing a little mute symbol by him.
Right, but then the mute comes off.
It goes on and off. Yeah. Huh.
Or
another YouTube fail.
He
Can I get it to work?
Speaking on a frequency.
Oh, there he is.
Oh,
hello.
Yep.
Sorry, is this loud?
No, you're not loud.
We're
just surprised to hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. This was a whole afternoon of trying to finagle this thing to. Okay. How's everyone doing?
Good. I just assume that, once we get X number of people on these shows, whoever like the fourth or fifth person is, they're always jinxed, right? And something goes wrong and they can't get in. I just assumed it was going to be you.
Oh, yeah. My laptop, the one I used to use to come on here, is just, it's paperweight at this point. So
right. The old outdated thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Right on.
I'll get a camera at some point. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's all good. We're talking Marvel books. We were just kind of talking about the new Agents of Atlas. And
okay.
Have you read that book?
I have not, but just kind of jumping on the conversation that was taking place. Damien, are you reading, or were you reading Asgardians of the Galaxy?
I was. I just dropped it.
Okay, well, issue 10 was the final issue.
Oh, okay. I sort of figured. It seems like often I'll read a book and then some event comes along and ruins the book, and that's the end of the book.
Oh yeah, if you weren't reading the event, it was worth the drop. But I found it interesting because talking about how they just kind of put books out there that they know are going to fail. That was the feel of that comic for me, at least. Was out there for maybe 5 issues, and it lasted the whole 10. Right. Because at the end, the whole back matter is just the creative saying, "Oh, we're surprised it lasted this long." Not saying that to a degree of blatantly saying that, but I thought to get this book made and all of that, and so kind of just piggybacking on what was being said.
You know what? I think a lot of corporate books are that way.
Yeah,
I think a lot of corporate books are basically. If they're not like Spider-Man or the Avengers or something like that, they figure if they can get an arc. It seems to me like the creators are excited if they can manage to get an arc kind of thing, because you hear lots of people talk about that. Wow, I'm surprised I got to do West Coast Avengers as long as I did. Ms. Marvel, we expected lucky we'd get 2 arcs. Clearly that's a character that caught on and did 50 some issues, but and still going, but. Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that's that way where the creators have a plan for like 5 issues and then a loose idea of what they might do after that kind of a deal. So,
well, speaking of 5 issues, I think Silver Surfer Black is supposed to go 5 issues.
Right, that's my understanding. Yep.
And this is an example. Me and Black covers. I don't know if you guys can see it here, but what I realize is as I'm holding it, in the 10 minutes it takes to read it, the moisture from my finger lifts the ink up off the book. So I have to if I'm smart, I have to remember to lay the book down on my dining room table and just carefully turn the pages.
Yep, that's what I did with mine. And as a matter of fact, I did that with the other Marvel book I got this week too, because you showed fingerprints on it also. So I was like, a good reminder to be very gentle with my comic. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, I'm just not thinking about that when I'm reading. I'm just like, oh, cool, I can read a comic.
Sure. The melting your hand goodness or lack thereof. Yeah, kind of thing. So, Silver Surfer Black, written by the ever exciting Donny Cates, who seems to be like the rising star at Marvel right now, right? And Trade Moore and Dave Stewart. That's why I picked it up. I don't know tons about Silver Surfer. I'm hit or miss as far as Cates goes, but I wanted to see the art. That was what it was really about.
I was surprised to see Stewart on it. I guess I haven't seen him on a Marvel book very often.
No.
Maybe he's friends with Trad Moore or something and wanted to help him out. Because that was a really pleasant surprise to find Dave Stewart color on.
Right. So clearly that little bit of beginning of the story is a tie-in to, to something, to
Guardians of the Galaxy, I think.
Right.
Yes. And I'm currently reading Guardians of the Galaxy, but I'm still confused by all this stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe it goes back to earlier Guardians of the Galaxy that I haven't been reading, or maybe I just didn't pick up on all the details that well.
But I didn't find that confusing. I mean, they do a good job of just kind of saying this is kind of, what happened. If you really want to know more, go check out that comic. That's standard
right.
editorial affair as far as superhero comics go. And then we go into this story of Silver Surfer basically being lost and wounded, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Almost him waxing philosophical on his role in the universe up to this point, kind of having watched worlds be consumed by Galactus and not done anything. Some because maybe he thought they were deserving at the time, and maybe now questioning whether or not anybody really deserves to have their entire planet consumed. Kind of a thing. And then him kind of lost in this new place.
Right.
That he lights up and then gets snatched away by something at the end of it.
It was new to me that the Silver Surfer could create a sun.
Put out that kind of energy.
Yeah. So I feel like we're in whatever version of, we're in Donny Cates' Silver Surfer, not a like continuation of what Silver Surfer's always been like.
Right.
As far as I can tell.
Right.
And also what universe we're in with all this blackness. I don't know. I don't really understand any of that. So I loved the art, particularly in the second half of the story. It just really kicked into gear.
Gorgeous.
Yes, when he starts the fighting and whatnot.
The world and everything, and the strange creatures that he fights. But apparently we're all female, which I wouldn't have known visually. But anyway, I love the final page with a reveal of someone who I don't think's ever appeared in the Marvel Universe before, unless I missed it. Someone named Null, or spelled with a K. Knull.
Right. Well, I'm assuming living in like a black universe where there is no sun, there is no anything. My assumption is that it was Null.
Right.
Just because the lack of.
Yes. I think it is Null.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Anti-Monitor.
Right. So I like the book, but I like it largely for the the art. I mean, I do think it's interesting, him suddenly questioning his role in, with Galactus. I always wondered, like I said, I'm not a big Silver Surfer fan, how he's a good guy when he is the herald of something that consumes and annihilates planets and whatnot. I'll never completely grasp that. So I do appreciate him kind of trying to work that in his own head. So I don't know if that's going to continue, or that was just him navel gazing for a little bit of the first issue to put him in a certain mindset to make some of the sacrifice that he's made, because he literally, by the end of this, he has this hand. He's somehow his silver coating or whatever that he is. He's lost it off his hand. Like he's given a piece of himself away to light this universe, right? I mean, that seems to be at least around this planet, light this stuff up. And it's really interesting. Once he lights it up, all the people that were fighting him and whatnot are all tranquil. It's a nice, pleasant, flowery, nice place where everybody's sleeping and having a nice time. And then he gets snatched up by the
Null
character at the end.
The doors or his doors and reaches out and pulls him in.
I'm kind of wanting you to like this though, because it'd be like the closest thing to you liking a Green Lantern run that's not written by. But Noel is actually from Thor originally.
Cool.
I think just in the Jason Aaron run, he was a newer character, I believe.
Oh.
But I have a nurse in my house, so I actually had an extra pair of gloves to read this, so I didn't have that problem. But other than that, I mean, I bought it strictly for the art, and I'm reading Guardians, and kind of going in at my shop, they said, "Oh, if you're not up on Guardians, you won't know what's going on." And I felt like it only muddled the issue more than anything. I think you could have gone into this blind and been fine.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think when the disembodied voice, my blindest reader as far as the Marvel Universe goes, when she goes to read this, she won't. I mean, I don't think this is going to be a bump at all. Because she knows that that's, unless it's something she's interested in, she just reads past that kind of reference as to, how this started, whatever. Yeah.
All you really need is to pick up that you're in kind of this abstract cosmic kind of world.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Right.
And it's up to the artist to pull that off. And they've got a good artist for that.
Yes. So, we got the setup. Now I'm curious to see where they go with it. What the outcome and whatnot. And like I said, I'm going to be excited to look at the art the entire time too. So, Alrighty. Any other Marvel books we want to talk about? I only have one other one.
It's the
Immortal Hulk.
Loving this.
Issue number 19.
This a new level of horror, I guess.
Right. Oh my gosh, what did they do to Red She-Hulk? Like, I really like Red She-Hulk. And so what they've turned her into in this is like, wow. She's this diabolical harpy.
The Harpy, right. Which she's been, I think, even back in the 70s, she became the Harpy a few times.
Oh, yeah. Well, it wasn't something that I was prepared for. Like I said, my knowledge of the Hulk universe and whatnot is small. So a lot of this stuff always comes to us as a surprise to me and whatnot. But I just really, really like this comic. For a comic that comes out as fast as it does, because it comes out more than just once a month, right?
It seems that way, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not consistently like twice a week, but it's, they don't swap artists around a whole bunch. And
how does Joe Bennett keep up? I mean, I know occasionally he has fill-ins, but not that often.
He must have found a way to his style, for doing the pencils, that he can just, keep it loose and go without fear. I think to produce it and whatnot. I just so this issue is really graphic. Betty is by no means a superhero. In the truest sense of, we beat the bad guys up, but we don't kill people. I mean, she pulls the heads off of mercenaries in this. Kind of explains why, and kind of her Hulk speak as to why she's doing what she's doing, because she figures if she doesn't do it, that the person that she's with, the reporter, is now back in the story also. And that she would be dead because these guys are basically a cleanup crew to, get rid of any witnesses, which they do. I mean, people in this book just get shot in the head, kind of a thing. So, and the Hulk, of course, is in really bad shape again. He's come upon this inhuman Hulk.
Abomination.
Yeah, the abomination that's like the husk of Rick, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
combined with somebody else. The I don't know if it's the original Abomination. Isn't there two people inside the Abomination there? They at least show like two faces.
Yeah, two faces
inside the Abomination's
right. One saying help me, and the other one saying kill you.
Right. Or maybe they're supposed to be the same person.
Yeah. But no, just really cool. I mean, I don't know. I'm just so tickled with this book. It just visually looks so awesome, and exciting stuff happens all the time. And rumor has it they're going to restart this book.
Oh,
Not a shock at all, actually.
And like, well, that's what, you know, Damien's response was. My first response is like, mother, why the hell would we be doing that? But the book is super hot. And I'm sure if they can start another number one, everybody who's been going, well, it's too late now, and I'd have to pay $40 for issue 1. If we start another number one, everybody who thinks they have to have number 1 can jump on, right?
right. I guess that makes sense. If they'll probably do what they normally do, which is just keep the story going as if it isn't a new number 1. So
right.
Do those people much good.
Right. I mean, because it'll still keep up its legacy number of 736, right?
There's that.
Yeah. For those people who look at that little number that's there.
I do appreciate that, though, on some level. I mean, I don't think I'll ever go back and collect everything, but
sure.
I do kind of like, there's a story where I just want to hop in and say I like this version of Rick where he's a victim of kind of being in the superhero world. Mm-hmm. They kind of waver back and forth throughout Hulk history, and when he was part of Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel, where he's kind of a victim of everything that he's gone into, where, you know, you have like Robin and Batman where it's kind of made their lives better. Whenever he gets involved in these things, he's always just, his life gets so much worse. I'm rereading the 90s run of the Hulk right now alongside with this, and there's an issue where he meets his real mom, and it ends up being this woman that kidnaps him. Meanwhile, the Hulk's trying to like take over the world with this organization. I just love that kind of side, you know, like knowing the Hulk has made my life worse, yet I'm going to still stick with him. And I like that as a sidekick versus the hero kind of coming in and making, you know, like Batman making Robin's life more fulfilled, because without him, he would be, you know, especially in like Grayson's case, you know, he would have been out on the street or became a criminal himself. I always like that Rick is just a victim of the Hulk and stays with him.
Right. Yeah. He's a loyal friend regardless, right?
Yeah.
Well, he always is supposed to feel guilty, because if Bruce Banner hadn't saved him, Rick would have been the Hulk and Bruce Banner would have been okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But after that point, things don't go well for Rick anyway. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, this is always when this is in my pile, it's always one of the first things I read, just because I know I'm going to be tickled by it. It's got just enough intellectual interest to me to read it, but it's also just really, you know, rockish, and just, you know, there's always lots of pages of, you know, some monster and some other monster's face punching something and whatnot. So I mean, it's just got a real good mix of stuff in it for a superhero comic, you know, kind of a deal and whatnot. So just really, you know, really enjoy it.
Getting into the nuts and bolts and like how the meat is made, if you will. Is Ewing working on anything else, and is he exclusive to Marvel?
Those are both good questions.
I don't think he's exclusive. It seems like he's working on something else, though, or is going to be working on something.
But, oh, you know what? Well, no, he had a little story in the Guardians of the Galaxy annual. That's the last time I saw something else.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
I feel like there's something else he's doing. Was he involved with that big Avengers crossover they did recently?
I asked because the only thing I've seen him kind of announced was he was all over that comic that they're going to release at some point. The Marvel, was it 1 million or whatever
Marvel
that was?
1000.
Yeah.
And now there's a Marvel 1001. Yeah.
I mean, his name was all over that. So I was just wondering if he's exclusive, and if not, I wouldn't mind seeing him on some DC characters.
Right? Yeah. I was just trying to think what else, because it seems like there's something else, and I'm just drawing a big blank. There's something else that I've seen him write that I really liked that I've read, and I just cannot. So he did the Loki books that I liked also.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to think of other things
Ultimate Avengers, I know he did.
Yeah.
Called the Ultimates. And after the Ultimate Universe was over, he was doing them in outer space.
Right.
I don't know what else he's done.
Yeah. But yeah, this is cool. I mean, this is This has been cool, and I mean, but I think Joe Bennett has a lot to do with that, though, too.
Yeah.
The big, bold, simple pages with some. And he maintains the same elements throughout every issue as far as some of the stuff goes. When the action shots, when the action starts happening, the physical comic book page is kind of tilted. The panels are tilted, like everything's getting jostled around and whatnot. All those visual cues and elements all just continue to work really, really well. 19 issues in, so good stuff. Get it somehow. I mean, my understanding is the secondary market for like physical copies of this book are kind of nuts. If you wanted to buy first printings of the stuff, I mean, right. People
are more printings, and there's trades, of course.
Right.
It's definitely worth tracking down a trade.
Yeah.
I mean, I dived in on issue 17 or 16, and then
right.
and then I backfilled in various ways. Some digital, some trades.
Yeah, and I would. This isn't a. I mean,
it's not hard.
I would think you could jump in anywhere and start reading. There's gonna be stuff you don't know, but I mean, it's like I said, for me as somebody who's not a Hulk fan, I don't know squat really other than a few names. It feels friendly to me. Anything I don't know, I get filled in, or I miss it, and you guys that know it get a larger Easter egg out of it because you have the history to go, oh yeah, that's they're playing off of how he was back during this time or whatever.
I almost want to recommend to you, it'd be hard to track down in a economically efficient way, but the Peter David run from the 90s, if you could read that, because I know how your opinion is of 90s comics, and that's one of the few kind of diamonds in the rough from that era.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that supplements kind of what's going on in this modern run.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So look at the comments. Jockio is saying that he just read that Ewing is going to be co-writing the Valkyrie book with Jason Aaron.
Oh, yeah, that was the one.
Because I was thinking there was something that was announced that he was,
Yeah, I'm going to be getting that. That's going to be a continuation of, if anyone misses Lady Thor, as they say, that's going to be a continuation of that character. So if you didn't read that, which you should, hop in on this.
Yeah. Yeah, Jane Foster's just getting to be everybody.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to her getting to be Captain America at some point, too.
Oh, that's what I was going to bring up in Ask Guardians of the Galaxy. I was wondering if you would even like it, because it was almost a continuation, because it's the same writer as Fearless Defenders. It was almost a continuation of that story with Valkyrie.
Oh.
It was almost a continuation of that.
Oh, really?
But they kill off the character, so...
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know if it would have been... But it was almost a there was references to that run, and I was thinking, I know one other person that would get that reference, and it was you.
Yeah. Huh. Cool. Yeah, well, as I said, I like that. And then, of course, I assume something bad must have happened. Somebody else has taken the mantle, so... Yeah.
Oh, spoiler. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Look at the comments about Marvel in general. The comic book commenter is asking if you guys don't mind a question regarding the paper quality. Are any of us going to pick up the House of X or the Power of X books?
Yes.
So they put, they're saying they put both on their pull list, and they see that issues 2 through 6 will be $5, $4.99 each.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did not realize that either, and I have put them on my pull and bought deep into it. So, and I just don't think that I can pay that amount for Marvel's paper. Am I the only one reaching a breaking point? No, because I mean Mike's pretty much has sworn off almost all Marvel books.
Well, I mean, there's many levels of trepidation going into this. X-Men has not been. It's been an investment if you wanted to read it, because you're not reading one comic book, and I mean the paper quality is what it is.
Right. And
I was going to say that
saying he's going to trade weight. Yeah,
that's probably it. Yeah.
And I was going to say it surprises me, because when you guys are talking about your wonderful black book, I've been touching the heck out of this one, and it survived. So it seems to be hit or miss on what they decide for paper.
You sprayed your hand down with a coating, I'm sure, before.
Yeah.
Some kind of silicate.
Huh.
I don't know if it's my imagination, but I could swear the covers are flimsier than the interior paper.
Yeah.
It makes
They
no
are.
sense at all. Why do that?
They are. They're made out of a different stuff than the interior pages are.
Could it be possible they're actually thinking of the most OCD collectors and thinking we're forcing people to buy 2 copies? Do they actually go through that thought process to actually put cheaper paper on the cover than the inside?
They're bringing back the 90s in their own way, I guess. We're going to get you to buy multiple copies one way or another. But yeah, I think that the paper quality has almost gotten worse. I'd almost want to go back to my long boxes and see if maybe even 2-3 years ago if it was better quality. Because I remember when DC switched in the interiors back to that kind of, that was a big, hullabaloo, but I appreciate it almost now. It has that old feel to it, and I don't feel like I can destroy it just by reading it.
Yeah, the non-shiny. Yeah.
Paper.
Yeah.
That's nice stuff, actually.
Yeah. Well, I am picking up both of those X books. I am going to pick them up in singles, regardless of the price change.
Well,
I'm still going to pick them up. I am excited about Hickman doing it and seeing what comes of it. I was kind of bummed to hear that it's just a mini series because I don't know what the plan is then after that. I was kind of hoping we were going to get a long crawl of Hickman, because I feel like I haven't read tons of Hickman, but the stuff I do enjoy of his, it takes a while to build up enough of his whatever he's doing. I keep getting told that I need to read his Fantastic Four because that's kind of a long build of of stuff. So I don't know.
Well, I thought it was going to be a run. I'm learning this just now. I thought they had Marvel had kind of got him back on some level, but if it's just a short run, my thing was I'm going to read this until I have to read something else in order to get the story. That's kind of my breaking point.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to seeing what it is. I hope it launches something new for the X-Men stuff afterwards, and that it's not a sea of X-Men stuff. I've been wanting to get back into X-Men. I just don't, like you said earlier, CDC, that I just don't. What kind of investment do you make trying to get all the different books that are going all the different directions that all are tied into each other? So, alrighty. Other Marvel books we want to talk about?
Well, did you drop Spider-Man Life Story, Travis?
No.
Is that any good?
I have not. Why does it seem like I have not gotten issue 4 yet?
Well, I've been enjoying it more and more as it's gone along. But I know that Travis had not been, so you can decide who to go with. But I really like this issue 4, where we have the return of the clone issue, so to speak.
Okay.
With Ben Reilly and Peter Parker getting sort of sucked into the plot together. And it just had some interesting, fun twists. And to me, it had kind of a nice emotional tone. It's like this really weird what if Elseworlds kind of story that doesn't have like a reason for being.
Those are often good comics, though.
What if Peter Parker was bitten by a cockroach or something? There's not a specific reason why everything's happening. It's just that Chip Zdarsky wants to tell this story, I guess.
And the premise is that it's just if he aged as it went along instead of
He's
aging
in real time, but events are very different. All kinds of things just go, and not because, to me, it's not just because he's aging in real time. It's also just because Chip Zdarsky wanted it to happen this way.
I somehow failed to order issue number 4. I have 5 and 6 ordered. I just looked.
That's kind of sad.
What's the 90s? I don't know that I'm missing anything.
It very good. It did not resemble a 90s comic. But we had an old Dr. Octopus, an old Norman Osborn.
Interesting.
Middle age. Norman Osborn's son, middle age Peter Parker, middle age Ben Reilly, all interacting in interesting ways. And we do get kind of well, I don't want to spoil anything, but we get kind of the ends of certain people's lives in a naturalistic kind of way.
And see, I have not been enjoying it because it doesn't feel like a fun what if kind of story. It's a kind of a drug out, meandering through parts of Parker's life. And I guess when I saw the advertisements for the book, my expectation was that they were actually going to explore what it would have been like if, for Peter Parker going through the Vietnam War, what was his role in that or whatever. And it seemed very pedestrian. And
okay,
why is it? I mean, and then it felt, I don't know. Every issue largely he's felt pedestrian. Like they hint at what Captain America was doing during the Vietnam War. And I'm like, okay, I want to read that story because the Parker story from the Vietnam era is, yawn. I mean,
You know what? By issue 4, I'm reading this as if I'm reading an Astro City comic. There'll be those short Astro City arcs that kind of cover a superhero's whole life. And this is not a specific alternative to Spider-Man in the sense of a what if.
Right.
It does feel like it's starting to feel like a really good Astro City.
And admittedly, it's Mark Bagley artwork, and I am not 100% not a Mark Bagley fan. So
it's slowly being won over by the artwork, or maybe it's been getting better issue to issue. But I kind of enjoyed I was having problems with his artwork, but I kind of enjoyed the artwork this issue. I don't like the coloring, which is what I call literal coloring, like flesh color. The people's faces are always flesh color, whatever the scene. It doesn't change by mood or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think now that Zdarsky is aiming for what does your whole life add up to? I think that's where he's going. And so he's been giving us little slices of Parker's life, and I think he's building up to that question of what's most important in life, and when you look back at your whole life, what really counted? Family or public service or other things that you've achieved. I think that's my guess at this point.
But I mean, this is a way to look at what if Parker aged, because I mean, they start him out, and each decade that they've dropped him in, he is that much older, which, clearly in the comic books, he's, it's taken him decades and decades to, age 15 years. So,
right. I think he's about late 40s or 50 in this comic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyway, I like it a lot. Other people don't. So,
well, how would you? Because I know you also read Marvel 2-in-1, and I know we were both enjoying that. How would you compare that writing wise? Do you feel it's a little more strong, or?
It started out weaker than Marvel 2-in-1, but now it feels stronger to me as it's gone along. Like I feel like Zdarsky is starting to hook me in emotionally in a way that he didn't at first, and that there was some good stuff in Marvel 2-in-1, but maybe this is going deeper in a way on some aspects of the way Zdarsky writes. It's non-comedic. I mean, there's nothing comedic at all. Zdarsky used to seem like that's all he did. So I think it might be a great read in trade or something like that when it's all done, as just kind of an unusual side project in the Spider-Man world. I also read. Did you have anything else, comic to comic?
No, I'm probably gonna pick it up and trade. I don't know. I am very. I hope Wednesday Serial doesn't watch. I am very strict with what kind of Spider-Man I like to read, and it's kind of the 70s through the 80s for me, and that's the cutoff. Really, I know that's ridiculous, but yeah,
I have that way too.
I have not really enjoyed modern Spider-Man, so I kind of thought it'd be tonally kind of modern, and so.
Yeah, I think I personally, generally for Spider-Man, like the 60s through the early 80s, and then I kind of give up.
Yeah, you introduce Hobgoblin, and then you're checking out.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah.
But right now I'm reading 2 Spider-Man books. I'm also reading Symbiote Spider-Man because I just wanted to read some Peter David, and it's pretty good, but dragged down a little bit by the Greg Land art.
Oh well, yeah, that'll do it every time.
Yeah, I was gonna say another one of those books I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Okay.
And even at his best, Greg Land is not funny at all. There's not a comedic side to his artwork, except unintentionally.
Right.
Whereas Peter David is writing kind of a funny script. So I have mixed feelings about it, but I'm not unhappy that because it's a short run. Also, I'm not unhappy that I'm on it.
Alrighty.
That's it for Marvel for me.
Okay. Anybody else have any other Marvel books they want to talk about?
I'm not caught up on Daredevil. That's the only other thing I'm really
right. I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying it more and more as it goes along. I guess this week the latest issue just came out. I haven't read it yet, but I've been enjoying that. So yeah, it gets more interesting as it rolls along. As far as like Marvel type news, the only thing I can think of off the top of my head, they're canceling Doctor Strange. You're still getting that, right, Damien?
I am. I'm probably one of the 3 that is still. Wait.
I didn't know they were canceling it. I'm still getting it too.
I'm enjoying it. It's interesting because I'm also reading Fantastic Four, and they're both having Galactus stories going at the same time, and they're vastly different. So in Doctor Strange, Galactus has been put into the magic world, I guess is the best way to put it, and he's just consuming all these. I don't want to give away too much because I think people should check it out, but yeah, you didn't hop on it. This is how long ago I was on Roundtable. You didn't hop on it because it was going to be in space, and now they've brought space to the magic world. So
that is an interesting irony. I hadn't thought of that, space to the magic world, but yeah, I've been enjoying it, and I didn't realize they were going to cancel it.
Yeah,
I assume they'll reboot him pretty quickly. But
issue 20 or something like that, I think is what it was, something like that. They're definitely. I mean, it started out as rumor and then confirmed. So, yeah.
Was it a certain website that said this? Because
initially, yeah, that's why I said it was all rumor, and I wouldn't even if it would only had been that, I wouldn't even set it on here. If that's where it was coming from.
I always feel as if it's a form of blindness when I check Twitter and they say, "Oh, this book is canceled," and I'm thinking, "Where is this coming from?"
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about the other news, and I thought that was the current DC news. I thought that was just speculation from there too.
Oh, sure.
It turned out to be true.
Yeah, when we get to that, we'll definitely have a conversation around that. So no other Marvel kind of stuff. J.J. Abrams' kid is writing a Spider-Man book. That's like news and got people bent out of shape or whatever too.
John Layman was very public about that he can't get work at Marvel. And
right? He's got Eisner's. He's won Eisner's. He's nominated Eisner writer, and yeah, I mean, I get it.
I'm always amazed when they bring their dirty laundry out on Twitter, though. That just
right. I mean, it's not a good look. That's social media for you, though, right?
Yeah.
But I get it. I get it. But it's also who you know, right?
Right, and it's whether there's at any publishing, I think it's whether there's an editor currently at that publisher who is simpatico with you, with either you as a person or your work.
I don't blame them for if this famous director says I want to work on something. I don't think they're going to shut the door in his face.
Right.
But I mean, the whole handling of that was fascinating to watch because every day of that countdown, it just seemed like the wave and the fervor was getting worse and worse. And then once it kind of happened, everyone, that's it. Oh, I don't even want anything to do with it. They just trashed it.
Right.
It was fascinating. It was kind of rubbernecking.
Unfortunately, part of that is also just, I don't know, there's a good chunk of the current quote unquote fan base that's just hot to eat stuff up and tear it down as opposed to, maybe this would be something good or something cool or whatever. At least to me, it seems that way, that the fan base is getting to be a lot more of that sort of a, that sort of a thing and whatnot. But to me, it's just strange. It's not like it's even him that's writing it. It's his kid, right? That's writing
Are they co-writing?
In a Scott Snyder sense, I bet they're co-writing it.
So they can put both their names on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
But
but how many Spider-Man books are currently being published? I mean,
clearly not enough.
There's quite a few.
Yeah, there is. There is. I don't honestly. I don't know a ton about this one. Is this? I mean, is it? Is it mainstream? Is it geared towards kids? Is it? I have no idea. As far as that goes, I don't know if it's. Yeah, they're directing it a particular direction or not. I have no clue. But
I think when you can get a name like J.J. Abrams on a book, I think it's more about the book market than the comic store market. You can really sell that, at Barnes and Noble or
right
like that.
Well, it's like when they hired, Coates to do Black Panther and then also do Captain America and whatnot. They're not courting the comic book market. They're courting people who know his name from anything but comic books, obviously.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So sure.
Yeah, and that was on the best-selling lists of a lot of book lists that I saw.
Sure.
Because those people know his name.
Sure.
I never knew his name.
Right. Well, I mean, but we've picked up books just because we knew that a literary writer was on something, and we were curious to see how they would handle that. I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name, the person who wrote The Last Dial H.
China.
Yeah.
Right.
Great.
Right.
I have his book right here, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's somebody that we
shudder at every time they do that, because sometimes it turns out terrible.
Sure. Well, sure. But it's a curiosity, right? I mean,
yeah.
We hear that name, we're like, oh, I know they did all of this. Now I'm curious to see what they would do, kind of a thing.
And Abel has a small army of readers in the bookstores that
sure
probably sold well too.
Yeah. Well, I actually liked those.
And it turned out.
Dial H stuff.
Are you reading the current Dial H?
No.
Okay. Yeah,
I read the first 2 issues. They were horrible in my opinion.
But Mike read them. He likes them.
Oh, sorry.
Let's talk DC books. Dial H.
Is Dial H for Vero, it sounds like. Now.
Yeah. I understand this is for children. I'm sure when I was younger, I was really going to get into. I would really be into this. It is definitely. I'm going to continue to the end. I want to know the answers that they hinted at the beginning, like the kid's parents. What's up with them? Why is he still writing this letter to Superman? And who is the villain? Who is the hero of the story? And I enjoyed it. I did enjoy the different styles because, we started with, the traditional, what you've been reading the last 2 issues. As we get into these additional superheroes, I mean, we get something like this with, what was it? Bluebird made me feel very Vertigo, and I was enjoying it. Even says like for suggested material for mature reading. Sure. So I kind of thought that was a nice little take. And as they continue fighting, we get some of the redheaded girl's backstory. And then when she hits the dial, she gets, I am Lolo Kick You. And she gets into this very punk style of artwork. Fun punk, kid punk in my child's mind. So that's what I was enjoying. It was jumping from one style to another. I believe it was all Quino's art, and I think it was just him exploring some different styles. So I was really digging this for what it was. And I think that's it. I'm allowing my 10 to 12-year-old child to love and consume this book.
Well, I can totally get behind that. I like the idea. of it. I just, I didn't enjoy that first issue of it. And somehow I managed
you
to
said you're
up.
reading it, right?
I thought he asked if anyone was reading it.
Yeah.
Looks like he's muted again.
Okay, all right. But yeah, the first couple issues, all I wanted was some more meat to it. It definitely did not have the meat that I think some of the other comics we've been reading have had. But I think this younger style book is definitely styled for a younger audience. And I think initially that's what it took me a little bit to figure out. And I'm into it. I'm buying into that.
Cool. No, absolutely nothing wrong with that. So there's definitely books I pick up that I clearly know are not geared towards me, and I read them understanding that it's going to be a different kind of a thing. So for sure.
And I believe it may have also been extended out. I think both Wonder Twins in this
are going 12 issues now, right?
Yes.
They're going to full 12. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that. Because I am getting the Wonder Twins. I think it's been fun. We're on issue 5 now. I've been having fun with it. It's just it's simple, it's goofy. It's not nearly as smart as most of the stuff that I have read of Mark Russell's, for instance. I mean, it's clearly, I think, simpler because I think the audience, because it's a Wonder comic, right? The audience is I'm assuming he thinks it needs to be geared a little slower because of that. It still has some of the social commentary, winks and nods, but they're not as deep. And I really would have enjoyed this more if he had really gone into it, not just kind of glossed over the surface of stuff that's being touched on in the book itself. I don't dislike it, and there's amusing parts to it, but I think all of it could be a lot smarter, and I kind of expected him to have it be that way. But I have to remind myself, it being a Wonder comic, it is written for that 8 to 13-year-old audience and not me. So
yeah, I think that's why I dropped it. Sorry, Damien, go ahead.
I like lots of kids comics, but I don't like Wonder comics, I think.
Sure.
So I also am not, I mean, I'm like Wonder Twins more than I liked Dial H, and I plowed through the first arc of the Young Justice, but it really has not clicked with me the way some kids comics do. Maybe my taste in kids comics is different than Brian Michael Bendis's or something.
Right. And this isn't a comic that, like, I would recommend to family members that are of this age group. Not this. I don't think they would have any interest in this, to be honest. Because at the same time, it's playing with characters that kids that are 8 to 13, I don't even know that they know who those people are. I mean, my kids are well vested and abreast of like Young Justice and that sort of stuff because of the cartoons and whatnot, but not the Wonder Twins. They were never part of that. That's dipping back into, 70s, 70s and 80s cartoon, characters, to the best of my knowledge. So I don't know. It's odd.
Well, and a lot of the humor is not, to me, based on things that someone, say, in the 9 to 12-year-old range would even get.
Exactly.
So he's not digging into it the way he normally would.
Right. It's a dumbed down version.
It on evil corporations, private prisons, and things like that just would go right over my daughter's head or her.
Right. And some of the dating stuff and the sexism that's in it, it's all at a level that for me and you, I feel like is very simplistic. And for that 8 to 13-year-old, largely, I would think, well, maybe not 13-year-old, but largely otherwise, it's going to just be whatever.
Right.
It's not on their minds to be contemplating to whether or not they would want a. And I would have been interested in this in junior high. I mean, junior high is when I started buying comics like crazy, and this would have not kept my interest at all. I would have bought the first issue going, oh, it's the characters from the cartoon show I watched as a kid. And then I would have, by issue 1, I would have been, no, I'm done with that, kind of a thing. So,
yeah.
And I do think that's interesting because me and Damien were reading Dial H and the Twins. We each decided a different book. I mean, they each evidently pulled on a certain part of us
right
separately. So
Right.
Well, in the first issue or two of Dial H, I felt like it lacked the kind of logic I wanted. Like things just seemed to happen, and that bothered me. And maybe it would have bothered me as a kid, and it wouldn't have bothered other kids, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I love the concept of Dial H, and I love what they were doing with, like what you showed, where they represent different eras of comics and different types of characters and stuff. That part of it's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Continuing along the Bendis line, anybody else pick up Event Leviathan besides me?
I'm reading Action, and I didn't really pick that up, so I was a little nervous. What does this collide with regular comics wise?
I don't know. So it's a 6-issue miniseries. It spins off. So Superman is off someplace having to take care of something else. This issue starts out with Batman walking through the rubble of some wreckage of someplace, and Lois Lane is there, which took me a while to actually figure out that Lois Lane was Lois Lane. They're both looking at the same pile of rubble and discussing the fact that Clark is someplace else. And somebody tried kidnapping Clark, or I'm not sure exactly what's up with that. They stumble across Steve Trevor is here. He's left over in the rubble. He's like to bear witness to what happened to this whole place. All these other facilities have been hit all at the exact same time. All the intelligence gathering type things, Spiral and Checkmate, and all those places have all been. They're in an Argus building, but all of them have all been kind of obliterated, and everybody's dead or disappeared, kind of a deal. Green Arrow shows up by the end of it. They've all decided that they need to get some trusted detectives together to figure out this mystery. And you can see the question, male version of the question, hanging out in the background. There's lots of, I don't know, to me, the conversation felt really weird. I know it's conversation-like, and is that people kind of interrupt each other, and full sentences don't always get, spoken, which is, that's how we all speak, right? Unless you're extremely polite, we inevitably end up interrupting each other if we're all having a conversation about something. But I don't know. It just seemed, maybe I'm just not a Bendis person. I just don't know. I've read stuff of Bendis that I do like, but this felt like, I just kind of wanted to grab the characters and go, will you just finish a sentence? Kind of a thing.
Did you, there was something kind of previous to this that was like a big, did you get that?
No.
Because that seemed to be kind of an advertisement for the upcoming Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, and all that. And so I'm wondering if something's missing, because in Action, which is kind of what is supposed to be feeding into this, I've always felt like any of this Leviathan stuff was background or kind of on the horizon of it. This is coming around any minute now. I don't feel really any need to read this, so I didn't, and I wasn't sure because I'm only reading Detective, and that doesn't feel to tie into it either. And from what you've been saying about Batman, so I'm kind of wondering.
Well, this is kind of its own thing. It's kind of I think it's just an excuse. Let's gather up a bunch of detective type characters and put them in a book together. That sounds like fun. And that's why I picked it up. Cause I'm like, oh, that'll be kind of cool to see these, detective type characters all together, and, what might they do? They reference they do touch on the Grant Morrison, Batman Incorporated stuff, because they mention, well, if it's Leviathan, that means it must be Talia. But it's kind of, Batman's like, no, this whole thing that's going on, this is it's without ego. It's strange. It's not, being the detective, he's like, it doesn't match her kind of MO. Like, this maybe was her at one point, but now it's out of control, that whatever this Leviathan is more than her. So he is grabbing back to that stuff. But I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
I agree with you that all their voices seemed off, and especially the conversation at the beginning where they kept talking about your husband and blah, 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 but they would never say Clark or Superman. They just kept going on with your husband, like they knew there was somebody there, but they didn't, they just stumble over Trevor, who said he's sitting there listening to them the entire time.
Yeah. Well, the first scene with Lois, she's got a gun on Batman. Really? If we take all the whole, them going on double dates together and whatnot, I mean, it just didn't make any sense. There's elements of it that didn't make sense as far as why would they be treating each other the way that they are, especially those two. I mean, not like they're best friends or anything, but they know who each other are. Outside the costume, they've literally sat and had dinner with each other, at the farmhouse and at some fancy restaurant together. So it just seemed really strange to be. I would not be having a gun on any of you people if I ran into you someplace, even if disastrous stuff was going on around us. I would not be drawing a gun on you. So it just seems weird.
It sounds like it's contextual more than anything else. Maybe that, but it was like $10, so I wasn't gonna. Maybe reading that would have been.
Oh no, it's $4.
No, the previous.
Oh, the previous.
Oh,
the setup. You're right, and I didn't. That's why I didn't get it, because this setup's not worth. And I will tell you, there's this page right here. It's the opening page. Confuses the crap out of me. How am I supposed to read this? I get the bottom panel. I get where I end the page at, but where do I be? What sequence does this happen in?
Interesting coloring too.
Like you said, I don't mind that so much because that's typical.
Yeah,
that's typical Maleev as far as the colors. I mean, Maleev is like Phil Noto for me. I think they do gorgeous art, but I also think it's incredibly static. It does not move.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that because they reference a lot of stills to do it. But that opening page, I'm like, just from a nuts and bolts standpoint, I don't know. It gets messy in the middle for me. So
yeah, I mean, if the more you want to dig into it, I mean, Lois is a reporter. She knows exactly who Bruce is. So she pulls a gun on a child who has trauma, who's both of the parents have been shot down, and she does that knowing exactly who he is.
Right. Not
there's definitely not a feel
pulled on him, but I mean, at one point there, Steve Trevor decides that one of them's the bad guy or the mole or whatever. Lois gets clipped, but it's like it's no big deal. I mean, shot, and it's like, okay, whatever. She's been shot. Even if she's been clipped in the shoulder, she's still been shot. But it's like, oh, go on without me. I don't know. I'm not excited. I don't know if it's just because there's not really the investment in this, or I don't know.
At $4, I'm grabbing it for the Maleev art. That's purely what it is for me.
Yeah.
And this is a 6 mini, or?
Yes, this is 6.
Yeah.
So they'll fold in Plastic Man at some point. Like I said, we'll get more of the question, which I'm curious about. But I don't know if this is just kind of an extra thing to do, or because they paying Bendis big money, he's getting to write whatever he wants to, and he's like, gee, I feel like writing these characters, so let me tell this story. Oh, okay. I don't know if any of this stuff has a larger impact on the DC universe moving forward or not, or if it's just kind of.
For me, it's like when Travis said, they're showing you all the different divisions and everything, and then the DEO, I'm like, well, I don't know exactly what that is, but now I want to read a whole book, or at least a 6-issue miniseries
of Mr. Bones.
On this.
Yeah. Mr. Bones.
The other thing, though, was like Travis, when they were talking about Argus, the Trevor, Argus is this, and he goes through the acronym and everything, and I'm like, who is he saying that for? The star reporter, Batman the super detective, or himself?
Right.
That was the worst exposition I've seen in a long time.
What they should have done is they should just put a little editorial bubble down there and said, this is what Argus means. Because them talking to each other about it that way, yeah, you're right, makes zero sense. So looking over the comments about it. So Devin Science Tank, he's saying that he's curious to see where it goes. He's been enjoying Action Comics. This just feels a bit weird character-wise, right? Yeah. Oh, and he says it's supposed to change the DC universe. We'll see. Isn't every comic supposed to change the
So listening to you makes me wonder, does Bendis read the other DC comics?
He does. He must, because he references stuff that. Why? I mean, the whole, like I said, the whole Batman Incorporated Talia stuff and whatnot. So he's really
older stuff, but the more recent double dating with Lois and all of that stuff.
Yeah, but I have to admit, he was a bit. I mean, I like him. You know, seen him at con, the friendliest guy in the world, zero whatever. I watched it. I mean, the last Emerald City Comic Con I was at, he was, you know, he had just been announced he was doing it. We didn't really know what books he was going to do yet, kind of a thing. And he actually ran a panel, the DC panel. He ran it, and just kind of his frame of questioning what other people were writing and what they were doing with it was just really, to me, was like, as a super DC nerd, it was like, oh, I don't like what you're saying. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a huge Bendis fan. I've read stuff of his I really loved. I've read just as much stuff that I'm like, yeah, I don't know. But I was excited about this, the detective thing. I mean, I really liked his run on Daredevil. So,
oh yeah,
I thought maybe this would be something cool, and maybe it's just a rough start, and the next issues will be more entertaining. Because, like I said, I like the characters that are going to be in it, so I'm hoping for more. Alrighty, what else? What else DC wise? I've got 2 more DC books. Anybody?
Detective.
Yeah.
Called it.
This ends the first arc of the Arkham Knight shenanigans.
It's interesting because the character was created originally in a video game, and it was basically their way of saying of telling the Jason Todd story in video game format. And it's almost interesting that they're taking this character and making it her own, and that I can enjoy. But I guess a step up from the last story arc is not really enough for me to say this is great stuff.
It's definitely a step up, but that last story arc was bad. Yeah, I felt like it could have paid off a lot better, especially in terms of her character. We've learned a whole lot about her, but all that really happens here is he defeats her on a fighting her minions level. She loses, and then at the end, well, big spoiler, her capture is premature, and she escapes to be bad another day.
Right.
And that's about it, right? I mean, that just didn't. I was expecting more of a payoff in terms of her and Batman and their relationship, and the whole question about the question that we've heard too much of anyway: is Batman bad for Gotham and that kind of thing? So after setting up that big question, there's no answers. There's no attempt to really address it, in my opinion. But it was a great fight scene. It was a great fight issue. So I really enjoyed it just on that low level, with a great. I mean, I think this is the best Brad Walker art I've ever seen. I think he's doing a great job with the visuals. And that's sort of where, like we said with Maleev for the art, I'm enjoying this for the art at the moment. Mostly.
Yeah. I'm just really disappointed. I mean, I've been on such a Tomasi high. I've loved the stuff that's been coming, from him for quite some time now. This just feels so incredibly deflated. Kind of a thing for me. I'm just surprised. Even the voice between Batman and Robin in this felt lifeless. I mean, it was instructions and verbally saying stuff that was actually being shown on the page, all elements of old comics that I don't care for. That's why I like modern comics, because they don't do that to me. Some of that stuff was in this. I don't know. It was better than the last arc before issue 1000. But if the Spectre wasn't coming up, which is a character I really love, I think I would be done with this book.
It's interesting because I thought about dropping this. I didn't even pick up 1000. I was on the verge of dropping this, and I thought, okay, I'm going to give this one more shot. Maybe editorial was messing around with it a bunch. But this does not feel like editorial problems to me at all. I don't think this is a mandate from some other, you have to treat this a certain way. I think this is just poor writing.
Yeah. I mean, someone has mentioned this though. Was Detective Comics like a consolation prize after they kicked him off as Superman, so Bendis could have it?
My theory.
Was that your? I mean, to me, that sounds really good because this, to me, it's paint by numbers. I mean, and I shouldn't say this. He may be working his ass off.
Yeah.
But how it feels to me is that this is just kind of, I'm just putting something out because I'm good enough. I can just put out a comic book. But nothing about this is inspiring. And I'm puzzled because I've seen some people on Twitter and whatnot talk about how they love this so much. It's just great. And I'm like going, you're trolling me, right? I mean, because this is, you can't really be saying that this is awesome. But I mean, I know we all have different tastes, whatever, but I'm just puzzled because when I see some people are really excited about it, I'm like going back and rereading it going, what am I missing? That's
well, and I think my long critique for probably the past 10, 15 years of Batman in general is how safe it's been. And this is almost showing me, well, you think that's safe. Check out this run. There's zero consequences. Any of the danger is erased shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it does feel like an old comic, but those older comics told these stories in 1 to 2 issues instead of a whole slew of issues, and so it's really hard to stand by it.
Right, you can take a story like this in 2 issues.
Yeah,
but when it's 6 issues, you ask a lot more questions, and you want a lot more. Them to deliver something by the final issue.
Right. It needs to have a message, like you said. It points out these issues that she has, and then it's not really addressed in any fashion. It's just kind of it's dumped and done. Kind of a deal. So yeah, I'm looking at some of the comments, and Luke is here. Gotham Central is saying that anyone done the math on the Gotham Knight character? She's a teenager, but Batman has been Batman for only 5-ish years. Shrugs. I don't worry about that kind of stuff because the continuity is going to get even weirder with the changes that are coming to DC. I think it's going to get even more that comics are just comics, and either they tie into the greater universe and it all means something or it doesn't, kind of a deal. It feels to me like with DC kind of lumping everything under one house coming up.
Stretch it so that, I mean, with the Gotham Knight story that they gave, Batman would have already had to been very well established about 16, 17 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it did kind of stand out as a sore thumb to me. I mean, I guess.
Well, but they've also kind of tossed out a lot of the New 52, where they they basically told us all these characters had only been around for X number of years. That they kind of, with Rebirth, they kind of they backed off of that some.
Right. Well, everything is flexible. Yeah.
Right.
But if Batman was well established 15 years ago, you would think he maybe started 20 years ago, and so he's at least 40, a little over 40.
Yeah.
He just plays differently. I don't know.
He
should just ignore it.
29 though, isn't he? I forgot.
I don't know. My Batman in my head is late 30s, early 40s. That's Batman in my head, and has been basically forever, unless Batman is Dick Grayson. So
I think of him as early 30s, but I guess that doesn't work mathematically anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying that in my head, that's how it plays. But yeah. So I'm, like I said, the Spectre's coming up in the book, so I'm.
Have they an artist for the next arc, or is it going to be more Brad Walker?
It's not Brad Walker, I don't believe. I don't remember though. So I don't know, but I don't have high hopes. I mean, it's.
But a year ago, if you told me Tomasi was going to write Batman and the Spectre together, I would have gone, hurrah!
Well, right. Yeah. Well, we were all when it got announced that he was moving to detectives. When it got announced he was moving to detective, we all went, cool. We're gonna get a good run of Detective Comics with him. How could it go wrong? That Batman and Robin stuff was so awesome. How could this go wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Superman stuff was good.
Right. I don't know. Yeah.
So it might be my theory's right. Maybe he's feeling a bit bitter or something.
Right.
But
that sounds good to me. I don't know what other explanation there is or whatever. So in the Batman line of things, I am still reading Catwoman, which we're on issue 12. I'm enjoying it, but it has slowed down quite a bit. Keep getting hints at this other story with this now deceased politician's wife, who's had all the facial surgery and stuff, and she's got a reanimated son and some weird stuff going on with that. Yeah, but this was a long heist that's gone on for 2 issues. This issue spent some time kind of explaining the setup that started in the last issue. So there's story elements I like about it. It's okay, but not like, not stellar work. But better than Detective Comics and things like that. But
will that series be ending when the Batman Catwoman comes out?
I have no idea. I have not seen anything that's told me one way or the other. It will be strange if not, because this comic did a good job, I thought, early on when it first started, of addressing the whole issue 50 of Batman, the breakup of the wedding, and how that played for her, and it still haunts her. And it still occasionally gets brought up in some sense or another, that whole her decisions and stuff all kind of still haunt her, and she works very hard to keep that out of her head by doing lots of other stuff and whatnot to try and not spend time sitting around contemplating, kind of a thing. So I don't know how that plays, or if once the Bat and Cat stuff's done, that it she'll Jones will work around that with her story. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it may all depend on how they're going to end the Batman Catwoman story, whether there would easily be a Catwoman solo.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Well, that's it for my DC books for this last week. I'm trying to think of what came out the prior week. What do you got, Mike? Oh, Wildstorm.
Yeah. So with this,
issue 23.
23 does make me wish that this was going on a little bit longer. The inclusion of the superhero team right in the middle of our 2 warring factions. Luckily, I've been reading a little bit about them previously, so I've kind of got a back feel for them. But otherwise, I kind of felt that it came out of nowhere. And then we see them jump started into, being pushed by, I believe, IO, that, they control the brains of 2 of them. And, this is just going to be a cataclysm. I just love it. And of course, this also makes me think that John Davis Hunt was not slowing down the book that him and Gail Simone was making, that obviously he can keep up on his artwork.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that Bacheletto was also doing some art with him, but I've been loving this, and I do worry. I mean, we got one more issue left, and it was great. I don't know what we get after this.
Wildcats. They've already solicited Wildcats. When I did my comic book order this week, it was in the solicits. So
right.
That's what's next by Ellis. I can't remember who's on art. It's not Davis, but
yeah.
So I have it pre-ordered.
Yeah, I'll jump to whatever Davis does next. The Ellis writing was good. It just there was too much. I mean, he was packing everything in at the end, it feels like. So.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how the next issue. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a fun 23 issues of a story, but definitely leaving me with how is this going to end and what's next. I'm assuming this story just will fold over into the
continues in Wildcats. So you have
Wildcats.
to read both, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm loving that series in trade, but so obviously I'm way behind you guys, but
right.
It's been a cool read. Kind of a sleeper book. I don't hear a lot about it.
Right. Well, yeah, when it first started, it was a big thing. He was going to have his own kind of, Ellis was curating all of the stuff. They made it sound like there was going to be lots of books. We got the Michael Cray book, which I did not care for. I dropped halfway through. And so everything it felt like the brakes got pumped on a lot of that stuff. And now it's just whatever Ellis is doing. That's what they're putting out. So, yeah, that'll be. Like I said, I'm assuming that when this ends, the next story is just going to continue on. It's a different title, but I'm assuming it's the same world, the same people, the same stuff. So,
all right. Because, the way you were talking, or I think Wednesday Comics, the podcast I listened to, the way they talked about Michael Cray, because they followed it all the way through, it didn't seem like it was touching well with this series.
Right.
But,
right.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Travis, if you ended up reading Batman Last Night on Earth. I know it's not.
Yes, I did.
But
Yes, I did.
I'm still kind of digesting it. I think I liked it.
I enjoyed it. I would enjoy it. I got it with heavy apprehensions because I still don't feel the need to read a Snyder Capullo Batman book. I just don't. I mean, I consume so much of it that I'm not that interested, but I picked this up anyway. And I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And it's Snyder, not Capullo, that I'm nervous about, but
right.
And the Snyder Capullo art in here is fantastic. And I think it is fun, over the top kind of stuff that I can get into. So I'm looking forward to future issues quite a bit.
Well, and that's why I like it too, because it's clearly set in some, future whatever. And he's still playing with that whole, he had a machine that could reproduce, that he could clone himself. So there's a Batman for every generation kind of a thing. And so this isn't Bruce Wayne. This is some future clone of Bruce Wayne that's just now trying to, no, I can do this role. This is what I was built for. And Wonder Woman, future Wonder Woman's like, no, man, it's a lost cause. We're going to the center of the earth. We're going to live in the hollow earth because the surface is trash. And he's like, no, I'm going to save the world, because that's what Batman does, right? We gather up all our people and save the world. And she's like, no, we're past that. We've lost too many times. We're done. So I liked it.
Yeah.
For those kind of
Blade Runner meets Batman in a way.
Yeah.
Not Blade Runner. Mad Max meets Batman.
Right.
And
so I liked it.
I did think it was weird that when Alfred tries to brainwash him to not being Batman,
right?
Part of the brainwash scenario is that he is the one who killed his parents.
Right.
Like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Right. That part of the story, I'm like, what is going on? Yeah, but you find out that it's just Alfred desperately trying to get one of these Bruces to just
live a normal life,
or and we can be happy together and not
huddle up in our hidey hole.
Right. And the whole severed Joker head is fun too. I mean, as much as that's silly,
got that from Headlopper, but
yeah.
Did you Headlopper?
Oh yes.
The witch that he carries around and makes snide comments to him. Now
he's got Agatha.
Yep. Right. Now he's got the Joker playing that role, but doing it great. I mean, it's really fun.
Yeah.
So it's made me think, maybe I should go back and read some of the other Snyder stuff I skipped over, but maybe I'm fine with just reading this.
Well, I have no issue with having dropped Justice League, for instance, as far as Snyder stuff goes.
Right.
Yeah. For sure. But no, that was fun. Way more fun than I thought it was going to be. So I'm excited for the other issues just to see what kind of story they tell us.
Did you read that, CDC?
I did not, because I confused it with the Batman Who Laughs last, and I thought, I'm not going anywhere near that.
Yeah, 100%.
I had no idea it was his own thing.
Yeah.
Because I thought anything Snyder Batman right now was connected with that. So I don't even know much about that character. So
I don't either, and I don't want to. I mean, that's where I'm at with it. It's like it feels like a heavy push to make that the new Joker or whatever, kind of thing. Well, he is kind of the Joker, right? He's the Joker as Batman,
and that's only 3 issues.
Right. The Last Night book is only 3 issues.
Right. It's part of the Black Label,
so it's a good. Yeah. He gets to do a lot in one issue.
Yeah,
I wish
it's square bound, which I don't like, but
yeah, you're right there. It's not for this week, but I was just reading the Superman Year One, and that was on the giant size art, and I was like, I'd much rather see Capullo.
Than JJ.
They are.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Especially with him drawing children, right?
Yeah, I showed creepy children drawings on Twitter.
That guy should not draw kids. That's just all there is to that. But that's a whole different story. All right.
My last DC worth maybe noting was Hawkman from this past week, or the week we're discussing, was a one and done issue. So that was kind of cool.
All right.
And it was they've now kind of established Hawkman as having an incredibly long series of lives through reincarnation. So they were just exploring a bunch of lives that he had during a kind of 1,000-year war where he fought on both sides. And it was kind of a fun conceit, a little bit of a familiar story in terms of like a metaphor for World War I, basically. But anyway, I thought it was good. I'll be interested to see if they have more one and dones coming up in Hawkman, or if this is just like, then they'll plunge into a next big arc or something, because they had a 12-issue arc before.
So this one and done, was it done by a different artist than what's on normally in the book?
Yes, but I think Brian Hitch, who was the artist for the first 12 issues, may just be gone now.
Gone.
This was Will Conrad. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's kind of been in the background at DC for a long time.
Right.
He's a pretty solid, but not quite as flashy artist as someone like Hitch.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know what's coming after this. I haven't looked close enough at solicits. But Hawkman remains interesting then.
Cool. Wow. Well, I can't think of what I read last week as far as week before as far as DC stuff goes. I know I did read some, but so if we don't have any other books we want to talk a little bit about some of the news that's going on with DC. First, so it was announced over this weekend that they announced 20 plus original, graphic novels that are geared towards young adults or kids. 20 plus, they're going to be coming out. Wonder Woman ones, Batman ones. I mean, they're just all kinds of books. 20. Does that seem like a lot to come out over the next?
Is that similar to the Catwoman one that just came out?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got that, and that was not terrible. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Right. Well, I'm hearing they're all really good. I mean, it's really interesting. But to me, it's like a clear marker. Okay, we know there's this young audience that's looking for full books, not us old geezers who buy things in 20-page increments. That the market is really there. Clearly, those initial DC Ink and DC Zoom books were successful, so they're like tripling down on those things. But there's a whole bunch of them that I'm curious about. I mean, and they got really interesting kind of not mainstream creators doing the books. Sometimes they're young adult authors that are doing them, but like Shanna Fontana, is that her name? She did like the Super Girls young thing. She's doing
Superhero Girls.
She's doing she's doing 2 or 3 books. Layla Dudanka, who did what's the name of that book?
Shutter.
Shutter, thank you. Shutter and Sleepless. She's doing a Wonder Woman book. She's doing the art. Someone else is writing it, but she's doing the art. So there's just a whole bunch. I was just really surprised that like I said, they announced a ton. I mean, I can't even name them all. There was just a sea of them that they've got coming out. You name, Mira. You name the character. I think there's probably 2 or 3 books coming out. Black Canary. There's just a whole bunch of them that are coming out with those books. So that was just kind of an interesting thing that they're clearly that book market is a big thing. And of course, the huge news is DC has decided that they're putting all their books under one print. It's just going to be DC Comics. So there's no Vertigo line. There's no Young Animals line. There's no Wonder Comics. It's just DC Comics. And then they're going to have age differentiation with the books. There's the books that are the 18 to 13. Then there's just the regular comic books. And then I guess they're still going to say Black Label on it. Is that right? I'm not totally clear on that. It's going to be the 17 plus, the mature, the mature books. So
Black Label, DC, and then DC Kids is what I saw.
Is that how it's going to be? And that's going to be the age group determination.
DC is 13 and up, according to them.
Yeah,
and I know there's a whole category in publishing of 13 to 18-year-olds. Maybe I misread it, but I almost thought like the comics that we generally read are now going to be a little younger slanted. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's gonna change the slant, or it's just that's always been the
baseline,
the billing of it. I mean, because clearly there's a that that 13-year-old to 16-year-old market is still a weird market, and maybe that's where the YA books come in at, as far as that. I don't know. I mean, I see the good of it. Let's put it all together so people aren't confused as to what's going on. It's simply all here. The rebranding of it in that sense. Clearly, as somebody who has rode Vertigo comics the entire way, started buying those books before the books that became the original Vertigo books, was getting those books prior to them becoming Vertigo. I'm sad to see it go, but at the same time, it's a legacy kind of a thing, but there's so many other places that produce what a Vertigo book is, what a Vertigo book used to be. I don't know. Like I said, I have mixed feelings about it. I hate to see it go just because of the nostalgia of it. And I think they're producing good books right now, but they've certainly gone through stages where they've had some rough times. But I don't think people understand what Vertigo was. See, they're trying to talk like Vertigo now is a label to mean, I don't know, mature books, right? Yeah. It's kind of what they're doing. And Vertigo was something different than that. And I feel like some of the
flavor of books rather than an age of books.
Yes. And they were very heavily curated by editors. The editors, it wasn't like people showed up and said, a group of creators got together and then went to Vertigo and said, hey, we got a book. Generally, it was, they knew a creator, whether it was a writer or an artist, and they had some story they wanted to tell or thought they wanted to tell. And then the editors worked really hard to match them up with people they thought would jive well to create some great work. And as much as people are saying, oh, Vault Comics does that now and Image Comics is that now, Vertigo opened the door for those companies to work the way they do now, but they're not the same. There aren't editors curating stuff at Image. I mean, there's questionably a lack of editors at Image in a lot of cases.
I don't think you see the Image that people love today without Vertigo doing what it did in the 90s. 100%. I think Image gets a lot of credit for what Vertigo did, because if you were reading comics back then, especially Image, when Vertigo came on the scene, it was very, I don't want to say monolithic, but there was definitely a tone that was very much Liefeld and Jim Lee and all of that. And then Vertigo kind of came in and was making those comics. And it was weird because when I was trying to talk to you on Twitter about it, I felt like when I told you in 1997, this is a Vertigo comic, you went in with expectations, but I don't think that's fair, because there wasn't an expectation to what you were you couldn't go, okay, I think I know what I'm getting here.
Right.
It was just, okay, I don't know what I'm getting, but I have kind of an idea of where it's going. And I think what we associate today as indie or whatever is very much birthed in that run of Vertigo right there. It blew the doors off everything at the time. When people go, what's the big deal? It was, obviously these independent comics existed, long before that, clear back since comics have been around. But this was kind of taking them and, for lack of a better term, mainstreaming them, going, okay, this is where we can get them to a bigger audience. And so you would see, people, I don't think you see people reading that Doom Patrol run without, if it's told with different characters. They kind of made it so you could palatably sell those to a mainstream audience. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you see that happening. If Image continued, Image wouldn't have done it. This is what I'm getting at. I think Vertigo is very important to comic books history.
Right. But does it need to stay because of that?
Yeah, that's a good point. I
mean, that's why I have mixed feelings about it. Like I said, I totally agree with you. Vertigo came around at the perfect time for me. I was, 17 to 19, somewhere in that area of reading and whatnot when that all happened, and I have actively been going back and buying and collecting basically everything that Vertigo put out during that era, anything that I had missed or during the time I had to break from comics to go to college and whatnot. But part of me also thinks, is it still needed?
Well,
because we have this other stuff, and is Vertigo now what it was then?
No, it definitely is not. And I feel like it's almost been. Do you think Young Animals was almost kind of, we can do this without the title, if you will, without the label? We can kind of do
Young Animals is weird because it initially was curated by the people who were doing Vertigo. It was Shelley Bond. Shelley Bond's the one that made that all happen, and of course she was still the one that was running Vertigo at the time. I don't know if that was something to appease Wade. I don't know exactly why they decided that Young Animals had to be its own thing and not Vertigo, because this is the same damn comic. I mean, it was, that pop-up imprint was basically Vertigo, just titled something different. So I don't know if that was to stroke Gerard Way, or why they chose to do it the way they did it. I think it hurt Vertigo even more. I think it devalued the brand. I think it devalued the Vertigo brand by doing that.
I think, though, but my issue, and I think where I would take a little bit of umbrage, is we're not going to see those kind of different stories done with traditional DC characters that you would get when Animal Man's all of a sudden Vertigo, and it's just this own animal. I just kind of, for lack of a better term, it's its own thing over here. I don't think you're going to see that if we're just going, this is for 17 and up. I don't think you're going to see Doom Patrol be what it was if it's just within the DC continuity.
Well, right, because where in the regular, if this is all just the DC title, where do books that take risk exist now within the DC imprint?
And I mean, if you look at like what Rebirth has done, they have really risk would not be a term I'd use to describe Rebirth as a whole. It's been very safe, that's where I almost put the New 52 over Rebirth. Is that beginning of the New 52, you had books that were taking risks, and I think pulling back Vertigo like that is almost a conservative move, another step forward. I don't think we see Swamp Thing that everyone enjoys with this new method of doing comic books either.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have Image books just go to Image and whatnot,
but as far as sales goes and whatnot, Vertigo has sucked.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a certain amount it gets clearly in the trade market and whatnot. I think that I'm curious to see how, now that trades are coming out of these current Sandman line, if those sell well like the original Sandman stuff does, and to see how that works. But and I've seen all the creators of all of the Vertigo books, as far as like the Sandman universe, they all say they've got a year's worth of stuff coming.
Well, take a character like Constantine, who I'd almost say the canary in the coal mine of all of this, where they brought him into the main universe, and you of all people have said, not the same character, not
100% not. Yeah. Dan Didio and Jim Lee killed that character when they took him back out of the Vertigo world and put him into the proper DC universe. They completely smoked that character.
Yeah, I think you're correct in saying we're going to get these independent stories. I'm making quote hands. I forgot there's no camera.
Right.
We're going to get these elsewhere, but I don't think we're going to get the stories that Vertigo really I enjoyed, that they took these characters that were to a lesser extent not mainstream and made them their own thing. I don't think we're getting that anymore. If they do this.
Well, the other interesting thing is now to some degree, we use these imprints as kind of a dividing barrier. Okay, if it's happening in the Vertigo, that means it's not in the proper DC universe, right?
Yeah.
Now it's really blurred.
Well,
unless they're going to continue to slap that black label on it, and then are we just to assume if it has the black label on it that maybe it's not? Because the interesting thing about the black label part of this whole thing is now the black label makes more sense. So when the black label was first put out, it was put out as these are going to be different stories, different tellings of the standard DC imprint stuff. So we're going to tell you a different Wonder Woman story. We're going to tell you a different Batman story that's not part of the whatever. And then suddenly we started getting, they started reprinting Watchmen under the Black Label and stuff like that. We're like, what the hell does the Black Label mean? Well, now it's been established Black Label just means that it's a mature content thing. So, but I'm just curious now, because now the whole universe is either all a whole, or it's some stuff sticks and is canon, and I'm supposed to remember that. So when I read the next Batman story, it matters, or none of it matters. I don't know.
Well, and you even treat, like when we would do Roundtable, Vertigo was never discussed during the DC.
No, it's independent.
It was during Independent.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see how fans, I hate to use that term, fans treat it, because I if it's just Black Label is now Vertigo, I don't think we're going to see the risks that I really enjoy.
Yeah. What do you think, Damon?
I think we're seeing a new management struggling and shuffling things around. They've already shuffled things twice now, I think, in a way. They've changed what Black Label means. They changed the names of their kids' imprints already, which they just announced like 6 or 8 months ago.
Right.
So I think we don't know yet, and they don't know yet what they're really doing with all of this.
Right. Is this another restructure shuffle because of the AT&T buyout versus first we got a new manager, right? We got a new manager, and we suddenly get rid of the bat penis, freak out over the bat penis, and suddenly the Black Label changes in that sense or whatever, and then we get the AT&T buyout, and now
I think it's the new management and probably having to interface with the AT&T people, and they keep changing their minds, and we'll see how things fall out. I mean, I would assume they're going to, for instance, not want to drop these Sandman books, which I assume are going to sell well in trades and everything. And will they put those under Black Label, and where do everything sit? So I think their ideas of what they're doing are still evolving. I also think, I mean, everything you guys said about Image and Vertigo and other indie books is completely true, but I also think that Vertigo in the 90s was taking the route less traveled, where writers were more important than artists. And I have mixed feelings on writers and artists, but anyway, I think that's the route Vertigo took. It was based on the writers. You find an exciting writer and you give him the right art and you cultivate him and all of that. And I think that idea about after the fallout of the 90s, they won in a sense. And then even DC and Marvel became more writers oriented and less oriented towards, editors controlling things and controlling all the elements of the universe. And now and at the beginning of New 52, it felt very much that way, with a lot of Vertigo-ish books as part of New 52.
Yeah.
And then there's a fallback lately, it seems to me, towards the older model, especially at Marvel, but maybe also at DC, of being run more by editors. Maybe at both actually.
What was that? I don't remember, and it's not that long ago, where DC had that kind of, the artist is more important than the
right.
What was
the only book that's left from that is the Terrifics.
Right. Oh, okay. So that was all a failed. That was another kind of thrashing about of DC with things. But so I think it's possible to bring a lot of Vertigo into your mainstream titles, whether they have the will and the way to do that.
Well, so piggybacking off that to some degree, Terrence Comic Crack is saying, did a bunch of layoffs happen, after or just before this announcement? I have not heard of any layoffs yet. So that means that people who
they had some layoffs a while ago,
right? But these editors that are still part of these Vertigo books and whatnot are going to get folded into, DC proper.
We don't really know.
So I would. Hopefully they stick around, because all those people that are editors most of them, or the ones that I know of their history, were all basically brought up by Karen Berger and Shelley Bond with this is how we do stuff. This is how we do stuff. So that energy about making comics that way are still there. And they're the editors who were on the Young Animal books. They're the ones that, put out some of the, and I've really enjoyed a lot of the Young Animal books quite a bit. So they're still there.
Editor currently come from Vertigo?
What's that?
Does the Batman editor currently come from Vertigo? I thought I read that.
He was a Batman editor, and he was a Vertigo editor. Went to Batman, did the Batman line for a while, and then went back to Vertigo.
Okay.
Is last I'd heard, because a lot of the
Vertigo editor that brought in Tom King, for better or worse, but that's another.
Well, so the Tom King editor is Jamie Rich, who came out of like Oni Press and stuff like that.
But
and
he was working at before Batman, he was working at Vertigo. He moved from Oni to Vertigo.
Yes, he replaced Shelley Bond. So they basically fired Shelley Bond. Shelley Bond was the one editor that moved from New York when they made the move to Burbank. She was the Vertigo person that made the move there, and then they hired Jamie Rich on, and he was under her, and then they ceremoniously dumped Shelley and didn't give him the title, but told him he was running all of that stuff.
Things for lack of anyone else.
Right.
And then, so I suspect he brought Tom King in to Batman, and he probably brought in Joel Jones, because the two of them have co-written comics.
They're buds. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, it's all interesting.
Yeah. And it'll be curious to see where it all plays out. I just hope it isn't the death of stuff that we love.
Yeah, me too. And I worry about that.
And in 100% selfish part of this, it's going to cost me more money to buy my comic books now.
True.
Because right now, I get a discount. I get a 50% discount on all Vertigo books. It comes as a bundle. And so I buy everything that's Vertigo simply by the fact that it's half price versus, if there's one in there I don't like, it's cheaper for me to buy it than not to buy it, kind of a thing. So
some AT&T vice president saw how much money you were saving and was upset about it.
Yeah, exactly. Bastards. I'm going to cut my landline now just because of that.
Well, and I think also there's other factors like what age range they're really trying to market to.
Yeah.
Digital's becoming bigger and bigger, and I think that's not us old folks. And so I think they want to just kind of fold everything in and make it as not only palatable, but as accessible as possible. Sure. And so I know we have that conversation. I'd rather have it physically in my hand, but I think that's the way the beast is going, is that younger audience does not read physical copies.
Yeah.
I think you're right. But I predict in 3 years they bring Vertigo back and make a big deal out of it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Sure. And I'll be okay with that. They've actually got a product
right
that holds up to it, that it's not just a gimmick of a whatever. So alrighty, have we talked that to death?
Yes,
as much as we can for now anyway, until we have more information and start seeing what it really looks like and whatnot. So yeah, okay. So we want any other DC news? I don't know that there's anything else that can't imagine. Alrighty, on to talk to some independent books. What do we want to talk about independent wise?
Did anybody else pick up the ride?
No,
I did not.
All right. This evidently, it's an Image comic. I believe that it had an original story before this about, they said the 15th anniversary. And I think the characters on the back is the first story. So there's two stories in here. One is about a female cop who had, a hard luck case where she kind of got screwed over, and her partner was kind of trying to let her know, this is the way of things, roll with it or it's going to affect you. And she's become a bouncer at a dance facility. It's not a strip joint. They don't take their clothes off, but they wear interesting outfits in there. So there's, some larger guys and in gimp outfits and whatnot, or in fluffy outfits. It was very interesting to see, it's kind of a weird interaction, almost a little bit of crime, I'm guessing, in here. One of the strippers shows up with her kid, and they have to figure out what they're going to do with the kid. So it's that kind of interesting storyline that I thought was nice. Though the whole thing is that whole storyline I didn't realize was only half the story, because the picture on the cover that I showed, the Hughes, Adam Hughes work, is the second story that's in here. And that's what I really picked it up for. It is definitely adult. It borders on S&M kind of stuff. The police are after one of the character's sisters, and she has to fight them back. You can see she's in the shed, Adam Hughes style.
Yeah.
Where the only outfit she was able to get a hold of course, was the fluffy outfit. So it was definitely one of those things. I mean, that the Adam Hughes art was why I bought it. That storyline was a tough pill to swallow, but everything was written well. So, if they're going to continue running these two storylines together, I think I'll stick with it. If they lose the Adam Hughes art, I mean, that was kind of the big selling point.
Sure.
I kind of flipped through it quick. I saw some of the Adam Hughes art, so I grabbed it. So,
yeah, you don't see Adam Hughes interiors very often, really.
Right.
I mean, mostly cover artists. Yeah. Interesting.
Okay. Now that I've been this total aside, but now that I've been looking seriously at original art, I'm suddenly realizing why people stick with being cover artists. Original covers sell for like 3 or 4 times what other
100%.
art sells for.
Yep.
It's crazy.
That's because some people want that big splash page or the fact that they have a cover or whatever. Me personally, as a collector, I'm not interested.
Right. I want the continuity also. That's the actual art form of it.
From the craft of, I mean, otherwise it's a pinup. That's why I've quit getting con sketches. I mean, those are fun, but it's just not the same as
a comic. It's a
sequential art. I want sequential art. Yeah.
It's a pinup.
Yeah.
Pinups are cool, but I don't want to pay 4 or 5 times the price of a regular piece of art just to have a pinup.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But someone does.
Yeah. There is a Doom Patrol cover sitting out there that I know is for sale that I keep.
From what era?
It would be the 2000s. The Doom Patrol that was out that Geffen wrote and Matthew Clark did the art on. He still has a cover that I have hummed and hawed about getting a couple times. I should have bought it when I first saw it because it was just standard price piece of art, and since then it's now become the price of a cover piece of art. And the fun thing about it is it's actually different than the cover because the editors wanted him to change the art, so they just they're all on the cover and they're all naked on the cover. Well, they were all covered up fine except for Bumblebee because she's really small and she's flying, and they did not like basically a naked silhouette of Bumblebee flying. So she's gone and there's a seagull in her place. So the original cover has her on it versus the white cover. Yeah, basically. So anyway,
is Trustfall 2 weeks ago, or is that
is that? Thank you for picking it up, so I have somebody to talk to about it.
Okay. Well, my first question is when does this take place, do you think? Because there's a panel where there's a iPod-like device and a picture of Alf in the same picture.
Exactly.
And I'm thinking, okay, so when am I supposed to believe this takes place? Beautiful paneling in this, I have to say.
Yes.
But
I was confused as F. But sorry though. I mean, I always feel like it takes a lot to confuse me in a comic. I mean, I can kind of roll with what's there and put pieces together, and I did do that, but what? And the whole beginning really confused me though. I mean, it looks cool, but the whole I got confused as to who the characters are. So the beginning, there's this person, right? But at the end, it's this younger girl, right, that gets kind of suckered by the family or double crossed or something. I'm just confused as to who is who.
It was weird because there's almost a reset when you get from beat to beat throughout the story. So they have that kind of preamble right before you go into the next. You think this is bad, and then it goes, So it was kind of hard to tell which was which.
Yeah. So, but I don't know, on the whole Alf thing with the iPod and the Rubik's Cube, I just think there's somebody who collects old stuff. That was kind of my impression, that this is just like old knickknacks that they have. But I don't know. It could just be a continuity and consistency too. I mean, because clearly there's magic, there's stuff going on. So I don't know. it doesn't really say where we're at. I mean, it's kind of a fictional world, obviously, so I don't even know if it actually is someplace. I mean, I like some of the storytelling. Like I thought it was interesting the shadow stuff where the narration stuff where they get this overshadow of a bubble. Like, so at the top of this page here, it's got this narration bubble. They're talking about about defining what trust fall is, and it says an exercise in which one person falls backwards, right? Trust fall, I'm falling backwards. And then the next narration bubble says something else without trying to stop themselves. And underneath it is this bubble up here. I thought it was kind of an interesting lettering effect. I don't know exactly what that's supposed to mean. That kind of over the top of itself kind of a thing. But that goes on through the entire book. Yeah. Anytime they're defining something. And
I'm hoping subsequently we kind of find out what that is all
why.
About. Yeah, because
right. Or is it going to be a random thing like the Image book Sex, where they just randomly had some of the writing was different colors just because, not for any real
sitting in a car on my lunch break reading this, I thought, oh no, I kept thinking I had read something and then and I was like, oh no. Okay, and it made it more of a stutter to read than anything.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so we have a world where magic is, functional in some sense. There's this character on the front. I don't know if that's the character at the end. They're a family that's like are they a crime family or not a crime family? It seems like they're working their way up to become one of the big player families, and they've got to do a deed. So they send some of the people off to do this deed, and then they kind of get she gets double crossed. Her and this other guy, the rest of them double cross him or something, possibly. I don't know. It was weird. I was really confused at the thing.
Well, it was sold to me on organized crime and magic, so I think you're on to something.
Yeah.
I was immediately, okay, I'll check this out, but
right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I just like I said, I'm not sure what to say about it because to me it was terribly confusing as far as who all the characters are in it. Because this person that starts at the beginning feels very much like an adult and talking about how part of magic is things just show up where they're supposed to all the time, blah, blah, blah kind of stuff. And so at the end of the book, the character that's at the end of the book, which I didn't think was the same person, but maybe it is. But here she seems old. She seems like a young adult, and she seems like a naive kid towards the end. And she's commenting on the ride will be there because it's always there. It's part of the magic. It's always there. And well, what if it doesn't? And clearly I would assume that, the hitch to this story is they're not just going to get away. They're going to be stuck out in the city in the cold because the ride doesn't show up, would be my guess.
But I would almost visually, storytelling wise, somehow be like, okay, we're jumping back and forth 3 times. That would have been immensely helpful.
Yeah. If that's what's happening.
Yeah. And maybe that's not what's happening. But
yeah, I know. Yeah. It's confusing, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. A lot of the Aftershock comics I am buying strictly for the coloring, it feels like in a lot of ways. Dark Ark, I don't know if you read that at all. I love the coloring, but it was whew. It was
I made it about 4 or 5 issues into Dark Ark and just kind of gave up after a while.
Yeah, it was not that good.
It was a good premise, but it just I'm getting nervous about Aftershock comics. There's been a lot that I've picked up and said, oops, maybe.
Yeah.
At first I thought, a new Aftershock comic. I'll just jump on that.
Right. I've kind of been doing that as something new comes along, unless it's clearly not a subject matter I'm interested in. I've been trying it, or if it's got creators on it that I'm interested in. The writer on this, Christopher Sebla, I interested in some of the stuff he does. He did House of Muck for Black Crown Comics, Shelley Vaughn. And I really like that. That was just kind of a bizarre kind of a tale. So he's got a bunch of independent stuff coming out that I'm kind of curious to see what he might have to say or whatever. I wouldn't say this was a hot mess, but I am really confused as to I get the elements, but I don't I don't understand the characters, who's who in it. So, yeah.
At first, I thought Aftershock might have an editorial voice a la Vertigo, but now I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, the main editor on it, the main editor is Mark Miller, right? Who was super long time Batman editor.
Oh, really?
The whole Batman family until DC moved to Burbank. When he's a New Yorker, and when they moved to Burbank, he went, "I'm done." And then he very briefly worked for Marvel. And then this whoever owns Aftershocks is kind of buddies with him, and they went, "Hey, let's do this instead." And so then he went to this. And so he is, in the case of Aftershock Comics, my understanding is it's writer driven, and they're finding artists lots of times. That's why a lot of these Aftershocks comics, all the rights are to the writer and not anybody else. But there's getting to be more and more of them. Like this one, I think the credits are to the writer and the artist. Get to be more and more that way.
I've noticed that too. There's some more now with the artists involved. And does Aftershock also own Part 2? Like, does it often say copyright by the writer and by Aftershock?
I don't know, but I think that if we talk to Ryan, I think he has a larger understanding of the back workings of this company. I think there's a lot of Hollywood money involved in along with this comic book company,
right.
And so I think they have like first grabs at if they wanted to develop something. Not that the creators wouldn't be involved, but they're the ones that shop it first, possibly.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure on that. Or they're producing these books and looking to see what they might be able to buy off of them after the fact. I don't know. Like I said, Ryan would be the person that would tell us for sure, because I know I've had conversations in the past with him about it. I just can't remember exactly the details of.
They might have like a first option right or something then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
there's a lot. I mean, there's so many indie comic producers right now, and I think a lot of them are supported by big investors.
Yeah.
Right.
Who either for Hollywood reasons or some other reason.
Yeah.
And I wonder what's going to happen at some point if investors start saying, okay, this doesn't pay off the way I thought it would.
Right. Or it's somebody that's like our age that clearly have jobs that pay a hell of a lot more than us. And they went, because I've done it lots of times, man, it would be cool to have enough money to have my own comic book company.
Yes.
And so they're just making their own comic book company because they got the money to do it.
Well, I mean, even Legendary Pictures, they did that. What was that one that we read? Yeah.
Did they do that Grant Morrison one?
Yeah, the Grant Morrison and
that was a cool one. Yeah, and they did some other comics too, and then they just disappeared.
Right. A trade actually came out, I think, either this week or last week. So they're still producing things, but I do think there is an element of let's see if we can sell this to the Sci-Fi Channel down the road.
Right.
A lot of it.
Yeah.
And what's it called? TKO is both a Hollywood guy and some Silicon Valley guy with a lot of money.
Right.
So it'd just be interesting to me, whether how long all these publishers go. Because they're kind of on the whim of someone with a deep pocket. And doesn't need profit right away, but at some point they might.
Right. Well, and the creators
Aftershock feels like a keeper.
And the creators need money too. I mean, at the end of the day, they depending on what kind of deals they have and how much they're supported by the company, they can't work for free. They have to be making some money somewhere, or they have to pull up.
Aftershock may be offering more advanced money than maybe Image or something like that.
Right.
Maybe. Hard to know.
So, Bronze Age Boogie. Anybody reading Bronze Age Boogie?
Oh yeah.
This is another small imprint, Ahoy Comics. Issue 3. The main story in here is the Moore and Ponticelli story of Martians have invaded, and they've invaded throughout the timeline, trying to successfully conquer Earth. So it's got some stuff that's set back in kind of a fantasy magic kind of a realm, and then it's got stuff from 1975. So it's in the Bronx, so it's kind of a hip kung fu, kind of a you know, kind of a thing. There's a female character in there. It's like
exploitation and all of that.
Yeah, it's, you know, there's a female version of Shaq in this kind of a. She's kind of cool, and there's a you know, a Bruce Lee kung fu kind of a, you know, character. You know, so it's got all those kinds of elements in it, and we kind of hop around in time, talking monkeys that are from the, you know, clearly from the future. They're part of the space program that ends up being part of the space time program. And
so I have the sense the Martians have been invading Earth forever. And
right.
they're finally getting it right.
Right. They're finally starting to put the pieces together and whatnot. So we had these different characters from different eras. I really dig it. I mean, I like the Ponticelli artwork a lot. It's a fun story. It's colored really cool. I mean, you know.
Did you ever read Marvel's War of the Worlds, Killraven?
No.
Because I think it's also a big nod to that with the type of Martians they have. Because Killraven was all about Martians who made humans fight in gladiatorial battles.
Oh, and that's an element in this the last two issues,
and
right?
they look very similar to the Martians in that. So anyway, so it's delightful the way it folds in all this Bronze Age material. And then literally the Bronze Age.
Right. And some of these, you know, some of the layouts are just, you know, awesome. You know, kind of thing. This fight between these two characters, while these people that are dressed up as Martians are hanging out watching and whatnot. It's hilarious. But I mean, so, you know, instead of having 1,000 panels, I mean, it's this one panel, but clearly it's this, you know, awesome fight scene, you know, kind of stuff and whatnot. Just lots of really cool. Just really.
Yeah, this is the Ponticelli comic I've been wanting since Frankenstein, Agent of Shade, which he did a great job.
He did one of the first Aftershocks comics was Second Sight. He did art for it, and it was quite
this good too. Also,
it was quite good. Also, yeah. And then there's this, you know, there's a fun backup story, and then there's, you know, a little splash of prose. The backup story in this is about it's called Major Ursa. It's about a bear in the space program that the bear's name is Elvis. They send it up into space. It crashes, but during that time he was in space, which seemed like a few seconds, but somehow he has a
cosmic rays.
Yes, he got hit by the cosmic rays. So he's got this, you know, super intellect. He can talk. You know, he's making an Uber space shuttle, and things are not going really well for him, which is just kind of a fun story for a backup story in it too.
I thought the backup story is done extremely well. Sometimes you think of backup stories as more throwaway, but a lot of effort's being put into it.
Right.
In fact, I've started to wonder, because they've had a lot of good backup stories in Ahoy Comics. I wonder where they're going to publish them, like reprint them.
Yeah, well, in the case of like, there's another book that's out that's called hashtag Danger, and that was a backup, and then became its own. I'm dropping that. I'm not enjoying it.
I didn't like that one either. Yeah,
I'm not enjoying it much at all. But I'm really so as Ahoy is in their second stage of releasing books, which is part of this, you know, I'm inclined to pick up these anthologies because they have been fun. The Edgar Allan Poe's Snifter of Terror was a lot of fun too. So,
and now they have a battle royale kind of one coming up with 3 different stories.
Right, and whichever story is voted on.
That bothers me, but
I don't know that I'm keen on that, because I know what's going to happen.
Pick it up.
I know what's going to happen is the story I really like is not going to get the votes, and I'm going to be mad that it's not continuing. But
it's got great creators on it. Even Peter Gross. I'm shocked to see Peter Gross here. But Ahoy has, for me, only had one bad comic, or one comic that wasn't for me, which was hashtag Danger.
Right. So it's been some good stuff. What else? What else do we want to talk about?
Without being able to see CDC, I don't know if he has more comics or not. Well, if not, I'll bring up Gunning for the Hits wrapped up. Did you drop this one, or did you?
Yes, I did. I did.
Well, I've enjoyed it all the way through, so it obviously pushed my buttons better than yours. But it wraps up. It has a full ending. The ending did feel a little rushed, where they kind of, did a what happened to them at the end thing with some Polaroids with some writing on them, or, pretend Polaroids.
Sure.
But still, I found it pretty satisfying. And the writer's going to take a break from it, but says he'll be back someday doing more. Now he's going to write a nonfiction book about Ryko discs where he used to work.
Right on.
So I guess I love that this was just so its own thing and not of any other genre or anything. That kind of gave me a bit of a thrill. And we do have one of our rock stars die.
Oh,
So that's interesting. And the hint that, a record company might manipulate the death of a rock star to make more money.
sure. That makes sense. Huh. Yeah, I didn't continue on with that. So, let's see. CDC, you got any other indie books you want to talk about?
That I want to talk about. Let's see. I had hopped on the Mignola book. What was that? I'm just digging through here. Sorry. What was it called? I hate to admit this, but I have quite the stack here that is not organized. Joe Golem, Occult Detective.
Oh, right.
Are you getting that?
I am not. I know that like Mike Search America was picking it up at one point. So how is that?
I strictly picked this up because one of the characters is named Cocteau. I will admit I'm kind of a fan of the art that was created by Cocteau, and I thought you'd kind of go in that direction. And I'm somewhat enjoying it, but I always feel, and you have tried to reassure me in the past that you just hop in on anything Mignola and let the ride take you where you will. But I always feel like I'm missing a huge piece of the puzzle whenever I hop on one of these, like Lobster Johnson or one of these other ones that I actually went back because a few months ago they published a bunch of old Hellboy, like Hellboy in Hell. You can just go and grab those traits for dirt cheap. So I went and grabbed those and but I still always feel like I'm missing something. The art is always fantastic, but I don't. That's where I always cannot hop in on these and really kind of invest. I feel lost in them whenever like there's a bigger universe that I'm missing out on.
Yeah, I've read Lobster Johnson one-shots in the past and just not quite gotten it. I can tell it's supposed to play with pulpy things, which Mignola does all the time anyway. But other than that, I miss the point.
Yeah, it's just hard to digest something where you feel like I'm missing and it's always why I've kind of hopped in and out on BPRD is because I always feel, what am I missing here? And hopefully I can track those down at some point, but I think they're all out of print, those big trades of the Plague of Frogs. But I always feel like there's this universe I'm supposed to have a grasp on, and I can't figure it out. I enjoyed it. I sound like
I'm not sure where the Golem thing. I'm not sure where that folds into the Mignola universe at. I never jumped on those, and so I'm not sure where it, how it plays with the rest of the stuff. No idea.
Yeah, and there's been some. I'm not going to say it's never been enjoyable. I enjoyed some of the Hellboys I've read, but those have been like 1954. Those kind of 5-6 issue that you can just kind of digest and not worry about anything else. But I always feel like a lot of the other subsequent material is.
Sure, that's fair. I mean, there is some of that's just definitely continues to tie back to stuff that's happened in the past. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Hellboy has always been easiest to jump in and out of somehow.
Yeah. Well, and kind of a side note, I've been collecting a lot of those old Thor comics, and one thing I'm enjoying is Mignola's work on. He has like Tales of Asgard for like a huge chunk in the late '80s. There's just you see a lot of his early stuff and where Hellboy kind of came from, and I found that fascinating. Just a little side there.
Yeah, I bet. Let's see, books that I read this last week. Are you getting the second series, Damien, of She Could Fly?
I am, but I haven't read any of it yet.
You haven't read any of it yet?
Issue 3, and it's like, oh crap, I need to catch up.
Yeah, so this is issue 3 of 5. It continues to be awesome. We're continuing to follow the adventures of the characters from the first chunk of it. Yeah, and whereas lots of times when something comes out, and it's like it's 5 issues, and like the people don't know what's going to happen. The creators, They don't know what the book's going to catch, so they're not worried about what's next. They just got to make everything stick now. This reads really well. It doesn't read like, oh, they just had to start making stuff up because people liked it, so we need to keep telling stuff. We're the further adventures of our main character here. They continue to explore, mental health issues in a really fascinating way. In this issue, she takes a bunch of medication that she not only does she take her own medications for her severe, OCD. She takes some medications that the woman who, that was the person who flew and blew up. She gets a hold of some of her medication and she takes it too, because she finds out that that woman had some mental health issues of her own. And she just goes on a completely nutso trip. And, of course, the art on this is Martin Morazzo, the same guy who does Ice Cream Man.
I've come to love his artwork now.
And so he just does some absolutely crazy pages of, her talking about the universe's donuts and just kind of, and through half this issue, like her left eye is talking to her the entire time. It's not just a voice. It's literally her left eye is like, telling all this madness as she's going along. She's attempting to have, she gets this kid this boy at school who's interested in her. And to start out with, she kind of is using him as an excuse to go and do stuff. He's got a car and he'll take her places. And now she's kind of, okay, maybe she could have a relationship kind of a thing, which she never thought she could before. So she is kind of exploring that, which is a complete hot mess because, of course, she's, completely bonkers half the time. And then there's the whole guy who helped create the flying jetpack. He, the Russians have snatched him up, and other special agencies have snatched him up and are trying to, get him to make a rocket work and whatnot. But yeah, this is the page I really love where she takes this extra medication and she's just completely tripping out. Vast is the donut of liberation, a formless donut of benefaction. I wear the donuts teachings. Save all sentient beings is what she's tripping out to as she ends up in a donut factory at the end of it. But no, it continues to just be really, really, really good. I mean, it explores all kinds of, it's got some great action stuff in it. Like I said, it explores kind of mental illness in a kind of an interesting and gripping way. But you need to get on it. You need to get on and read them if you're buying them.
I do.
Yeah. So good stuff. What else? What else do we want to talk about?
Well, I picked up Sonata and I immediately wrote my comic store and told them to drop it.
Oh, okay.
I did not like it. And then I listened to a podcast where they loved it and I was almost talked back into liking it. It's funny.
See, I didn't get it. I'm trying to think why I just chose not to get it. There was something about it. I was like, oh, that looks like it might be interesting. And then something about it made me go, no, I'm not going to get it. I can't remember.
Well, it looks kind of like a epic fantasy at first. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think you were a fan of that kind of thing. But it's actually science fiction.
Oh.
Set on an unnamed, well, not an unnamed planet. The planet's named Perdita, which means lost, I found out. But anyway, it's, I guess, about competing colonists and the native life forms on this planet. But I don't think they have any strong urge to deeply explore colonialism or anything like that. It felt, the reason I reacted against it felt like maybe it was meant to be a video game eventually or something like that.
Oh.
The art was very photoshopped. I had not heard of this guy, Brian Haberlin, before, but someone told me he often does media related kind of comics.
Okay.
And I got it because the writer was David Hein, who's written some very interesting things, but he's actually just kind of a co-writer, and the whole thing is owned by Anomaly Productions.
Oh, yeah.
But when I listened to that podcast, I realized, yes, there are a lot of cool science fiction ideas in here, but it's just told in a generic kind of way for me.
Right. They're there, but are they going to do anything with them?
Right.
I mean, if they were exploring colonialism, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
But
And they have kind of throwaway things like, these are like the old gods of the planet, and they just are seen in the background, but so far don't play a role in it. So it's kind of a cool image of this planet with layers of life on it and stuff. But the bad aliens who are also colonists just seem evil. Anyway, one thing that struck me about it, though, is I just assume when I'm getting an Image comic that I'm getting a creator-owned comic, but this is really owned by Anomaly Productions, and that's who owns the copyright. Who knows what Anomaly Productions is? But so I feel like Image, I rely on Image to not do that kind of thing. I would expect that more maybe from IDW or someone like that.
Right.
So anyway.
Man,
it is Shadowline, and I don't know fully the difference between regular Image Comics and Shadowline.
Well, Shadowline is Kirkman.
Is it?
Yeah,
that's was something else. Maybe it is Kirkman.
I thought
he might be Hollywood buddies of Kirkman or something.
Is he not Skybound or
Skybound? That's what I thought Kirkman was.
Yeah,
that's right. So who is Shadowline? Somebody else is Shadowline.
One of the other partners, I think, of the original.
Hold on. I have a computer right in front of me.
It says Shadowline. So it's both an Anomaly production and a Shadowline production. And for Shadowline, they just mentioned Jim Valentino. That's who.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So it's Jim Valentino's.
Okay. I was going to say, I knew it was one of them.
So I guess I need to watch out for when it says Shadowline in previews or something. If it says that in the previews.
Right.
It looks like that Haberline guy started out in coloring and kind of did things on Spawn, Witchblade, things like that.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe he's someone who's worked with Valentino on projects before.
Could be. So I am still reading Infinite Dark.
Wow.
That's my other comic that I'm getting but not keeping up with.
Right. So this was a comic that clearly at like issue whatever, I think it was going to be done. I mean, because it had a very finality kind of a feel to it, and I think it sold well enough that they went, "Oh, we'll tell more story." So we're venturing on after. The premise of it is they're basically on a satellite. The satellite is the last thing that exists in the universe. It has some sort of a entropy field around it that keeps the nothingness, because literally the universe is disappearing from consuming this place. There's some entity out there, some monster that's trying to get them, some living entity that's consuming everything. Supposedly it needs to consume everything so the universe can restart. But of course, the human race is pretty persistent at not dying off completely. They go through some shenanigans to save themselves, and that's like the end of the first arc and what would have probably been the end of the story. But it's sold, like I said, so well enough that they are continuing on. So now it's our main character. She has woken up. She's been out for weeks and weeks. Things are they've lost like 50% of the satellite that they were attached to. They had to eject it to survive the initial stuff. So things are not going well socially on the satellite now. Things are very stressed because, of course, the people who are in charge of the place have kind of hid stuff from people. People are upset about that, and they continue to hide stuff. So I still like the story, but it definitely feels like we're trying to come up with something after we thought we'd finished the story. What's next kind of thing. So this one has a little more political intrigue in it because of the strife that's going on the satellite. It still deals with some of the elements of this kind of void. Some of the people that are exposed to this void are still kind of monsters in the story. Not sure where it's going to go. If they choose to go on with it after the end of the next story arc, I don't know that I'll keep getting it, because it's starting to feel more and more like we're struggling to come up with a story because we want to continue to produce. We want to continue to work, but didn't maybe necessarily think there was going to be anything past the season one. So we wrote for season one and without thinking about what might be next.
So in a way, you kind of wish they just ended it.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been okay with that, because now it kind of feels like, I mean, there's elements of it that are still cool, but it really kind of feels like we're treading water into stuff that maybe we didn't necessarily had planned.
Yeah.
And if you get around to reading it, let me know, because maybe you'll get more out of it. The next issue is issue 8, and it says that either it's the end or the beginning of whatever is next. You know, kind of.
We'll see how the sales are. It's the end of the
right. You know, kind of a thing. So
that's almost what it sounds like. Is they wrote it thinking, okay, this will last maybe 3 issues, and then we'll sell the trade.
Right.
Road, and then
Right. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Well, I mean, one interesting thing about American comics is because of our superhero background, we expect comics to just keep going and going, but a lot of stories don't need to keep going.
No,
you know, they're not
100%.
meant to go on forever.
Right, but I also get the idea that if you're producing something, it seems successful, you're making money on it.
Some more of it.
If we can continue on with it, why wouldn't we continue on it? Because I've got this, you know, from my understanding is with some of these Image comics, if you can sell 12,000 floppies a month and then have the trade sales on top of that, you can stay afloat for a very long time. I mean, Wayward went on for a long time, and that was their model, the model they worked with on that book. And so if you can continue with that, then I get it. Why wouldn't you? But at the same time,
as a reader, it's not
stay true to the story too, though. Yeah. I mean, if you ended it, you need to end it, kind of a deal. So I don't know. Anyway, what else you guys got?
Well, I don't have a copy in front of me, sorry, CDC, do you have something? I'm not seeing you. I can't tell.
I'm going through my pile and I'm thinking, what do I want to talk about? Nothing's really standing out. It was kind of a light week indie-wise for me.
Yeah.
It was relatively light. Yeah.
Was a little bit more heavy, but I know. Let's see. Nothing I'm really dying to talk about.
Okay.
Well, a nice one that I'd like to mention, but I don't have a copy to hold up because I lent it to my neighbors, is Gogor.
Oh, okay.
What's the name of it's the writer, artist, does the lettering, the coloring, everything.
I have that.
I read issue 1, but I haven't.
So it continues in the same tone as issue 1. We just learn a little more about the world. Our hero tries to get Gogor, the swampy-looking monster, to just come right back to his school and save the school. But Gogor has his own agenda of where he wants to go. So they go off. You know, the whole world's made up of these little floating islands. So they go off to a floating island that's kind of a swampy place. And we meet some cool swamp characters. And the plot advances a little, but there's plenty more to come. And I just find it a really delightful, family-friendly kind of comic. And he has said he only plans, he hopes to do 1 or 2 arcs. And if there's any more, it's gravy. So we'll see what he's got up his sleeve for the whole story. But it's kind of, it's just a fun, slightly original feeling fantasy for me. But I think there's other people out there who might like it if they knew about it.
Yeah. I read issue 1 and wasn't really sold on it, so I didn't get any more of it. I mean, I see the appeal to it, but I don't know. There's something about it. It just didn't grab me the way I guess I wanted it to, or I was having a cynical day, or I don't know what.
Right.
But I see the premise of it is kind of cool. I mean, because it's basically this like giant ring of floating islands, right? And each island can be kind of its own environment and whatnot. So you have, I mean, I can see from a storytelling aspect, you know, the sky's the limit. You can kind of treat it the same way as like Black Science, where every issue they can be on a new place with all new whatever kind of a thing. And that aspect of it would be fun if that's what they plan to kind of, you know, do with it.
Well, it very much is like a middle reader book. So I think, you know, just like with those Wonder comics, it's going to work for some people and not for others.
Right.
For me, it was my flavor of middle reader kind of comic.
Sure.
I enjoyed. And so I lent it to my neighbors who have a 6-year-old, and they were able to read it with her. So you can enjoy it at a pretty young age.
Sure. Cool. Cool. I am still reading Wasted Space. Speaking of kind of off the wall.
I bought the trade because
comic.
of you, but I still haven't got around to reading.
Yeah. I continue to love the book. It kind of, sometimes explores, there's these God figures that are talking in the ears of a few characters in this. Billy, our main character, he is somebody who, listened to this supposed God figure, told him all this stuff. He conveyed it to the universe and then basically screwed the universe without realizing it until it was too late. So he's basically hated everywhere. In this issue, he has some conflicts with some of his friends over some decisions he makes. He makes some decisions that they all kind of see as being very selfish, and like he almost nukes them all. I mean, they actually blow, they actually set off a nuclear bomb in this issue, and they're like right on the edge of where the nuclear blast is, and they actually get buried in some of the rubble. And so the friends are kind of pissed off. It's like, you didn't even talk to us about whether or not this was okay. You just chose to do this. If you were off by, and the person he's using to help him be an expert is this basically punk anarchist that doesn't have a clue. He's just taking a wag at, we're probably going to be okay. And so they're all mad at him. They get all these keys to the universe to open this thing up that'll basically talk to like the supercomputer. They'll give them all the answers. It basically gives them crap for answers. So now they're off flying to this stupid planet that's called Earth that they hear is just like a little pig hole that they're going to. They're not happy about going there because supposedly that's where this stuff's going to be. They're trying to save the universe. Meanwhile, the Alpha and the Omega are in conflict. Alpha is the god that's kind of talking, and is talking in Billy's ear. And the Omega is this kind of universe-ending thing that needs stuff to be done in a particular order. And now Billy and his friends are kind of throwing a monkey wrench in that, and it's not okay. He wants this stuff to march in a particular way because he is Legion and he's going to consume everything at the end of it. And so he's not happy that it's kind of, gone wonky kind of a deal. But I absolutely really love it. I love it when it waxes philosophical. I really like this writer's Morrissey doing that when he does it. He doesn't do it in every issue, but when he does it, I really like it. Sherman art, clearly not art for everybody, but I just really dig it. It's just kind of its own kind of indie mess of a book. It clearly lets you know what's going on, but it's not afraid to, keep some of it simple. As far as looks go and whatnot. I love these wraparound covers are always really freaking cool. I don't know. Like I said, I just continue to really dig it. This guy right here is the Omega, and he's just squished one of his servitors who's not giving him information that he really wants to hear. Kind of a thing. But I just, like I said, I really dig it. I'm really digging a lot of the Vault books. It's getting to the point now where, unless it's something that clearly is not something I'm interested in, I'm trying out most of the Vault stuff just to see what it's like, because it just continues to be kind of some cool stuff. So, yeah.
What other Vault comics jump out at you? I'm trying to remember.
So stuff that's coming up. There's a book called Test that's coming up. I'm interested in. I really liked Deep Roots, which is a much older Vault comics that Dan Waters wrote.
Oh, right.
I did finish that. I did really enjoy that. I probably should do a video on it at some point. Resonant is coming up very quickly in July. I'm looking forward to it also. The first big Vault book that I heard about that I have not actually read is called Heathen. People got really excited about it, but I didn't actually get around to, I haven't picked it up. It's kind of a female fantasy book and whatnot. So,
Dad, hi.
They can't hear, or they can hear, but
I can hear. Yes, I can.
But they're in the middle of talking. Okay, here, let's just go off camera.
But anyway, it's good stuff.
Yeah, I think I read a little bit of Heathen, and I don't know why I dropped it. How long ago was that?
Well, The Heathen was quite some time ago, and I know that when Vault Comic first started out, I've been hearing from other people that when it first started, it had some consistency issues. It's kind of like Black Mask in that they would announce they're doing a bunch of stuff, they'd start to put stuff out, and then you would just never see it, kind of a thing. Which I know can definitely definitely put people off of collecting an independent book if it doesn't come out in some level of consistency. I mean, I'm all for the big breaks that they need to recharge and get caught up and that sort of stuff. But when it's like an inconsistency between like, issue 1 and issue 2 of months, it gets hard to read it then,
Speaking of which, how is Saga doing?
What's Saga? What's that?
Okay, I was just wondering because I'm one of the few.
Yeah. Well, I'm wearing my Prince 4 t-shirt today, but I'm one of the people that doesn't believe it's actually going to come back.
Well, what was the one that Rucka was working on with, and then they went and worked on Wonder Woman? What was that? Black
Magic. Yeah. Suppose it's coming back. They just released hardbacks of it and stuff. I know that Nicola Scott, she had some eye surgery just here very recently, like eye surgery that like left her blind for a period of time. Ooh. So if they are working on it, clearly that would be a setback for a while. But I don't know. I don't know when we're going to see another arc of that, kind of a thing. No idea.
When was the last issue of Saga out?
6 months ago, maybe. How long do you think it's been since Saga started its break? Or has it already been a year? Do you think, Damien?
Saga?
Yeah.
It feels like 5 or 6 months.
See, that's what I was thinking too. And they say they're going to be off for at least a year.
Right.
CDC was just asking about it. And I just, as far as books taking giant breaks, the longer it goes, the more I don't believe it's going to come back. And if it does come back, I just had this sick feeling that it's just not going to have the magic anymore.
Yeah, I do worry about the magic going away. But, you kind of read people saying how important Saga is to comic book stores. And I asked my comic book store and he said, yes, it was our #1 selling comic. And our #2 is Paper Girls.
Right. And Paper Girls ends next issue, right?
Yeah. So that's tough on the comic book stores.
100%.
Well, I've thought about hopping back on that in some fashion and catching up. I'm like the outlier. I feel like I'm on an island all my own. I don't read Saga. I didn't hit me at first. So I've thought about if there's this long break, maybe that'd be a good time to see what the hype is all about. But I don't know that if it never comes back, then I will feel it would almost be like what was the weekly that DC did that was not a Batman one not too long ago.
Oh,
2-1, the other one.
The Future's End, or
I felt like I sailed through that the whole way through, and I regretted sitting through all that. And if it's just going to be that with Saga, I don't know.
Yeah. Last Saga was on July of 2018. See, it has been just about a year.
Oh, wow, a year. It doesn't feel
Thank you,
long.
Zeus. Yes.
Wow.
Huh.
I was thinking it was, and that's why I keep thinking that we're just not going to. But I haven't seen Fiona Staples do anything, though. I mean, like, she's not doing a cover here or there. I mean, I know that
she's working in a different field. Maybe
right. I mean, I know that,
something.
yeah, could be. I mean, I know that was making enough money that she just didn't have concerns for a lot of stuff as far as, like she didn't need to sell her art. She didn't need to do, a lot of stuff. So I have no.
Right. And they're probably still making money off Saga.
I would assume so.
Of course, they'll make even more if they come back, and that'll boost all the sales of all the old stuff.
Right.
But, yeah.
Well, I've seen some omnibuses. Is that okay? Because I thought about just tracking those down and hoping the Gutter Loss does not. Because I think the art is a huge selling point, obviously.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So Zeus is saying that she did a variant cover for Isola, which I missed that because I might have picked up the variant cover if she was doing a variant cover of it. So
well, she's done a variant cover the past 12 months.
Right. Well, I'm just saying that I hadn't even noticed that. And typically, there for a while, she was doing other stuff and extra things and whatnot. And it's kind of
The last time they took a little bit of a long break was when she was doing Jughead or something like that.
Archie, yeah, she did that.
Or no,
Archie.
yeah, they're the main Archie book.
Yeah, the main Archie book relaunch. She did a few issues of it or whatnot. So
did they say minimum of a year, or did they say a year?
Minimum year.
Yeah.
Minimum of a year. So yeah, I don't know. So we'll see. Like I said, I'm one of those annoying people that says they aren't coming back. I'll be happily, pleasantly surprised if they come back, and clearly I will get it. I love the book, and the cliffhanger it left it all on was earth-shattering kind of stuff. And I'm assuming when it comes back, it'll have skipped years again. Hazel's going to be, a teen or something by the time the book comes back, because it seems to be when they take these big hiatuses, she ages quite a bit. So, yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting if and when it does, but yeah, I don't have any other independent books. The only other independent book I got was House of Whispers, and it continues to be meh. So it's the one Sandman Universe book I'm just not real excited by. So, but all of those Sandman Universe books all supposedly have another year under their belts. So,
well, I was wondering, Travis, were you reading Thunderbolt?
Yes.
And did you ever talk about the end of it?
No, because that
was while you were on your own hiatus.
Right.
Did you have any thoughts about it? I mean, I kind of struggle with the end of it.
Because the last issue that we talked about was the black and white issue, which we both loved.
Yes. And this issue, I guess the point of view gets weird.
Yes.
Like, is it the point of view of Thunderbolt or of the author, or has Thunderbolt kind of become the author of things?
I think he becomes the author of things. Is how I kind of read into it.
And I guess, I mean, there was a lot of cool stuff in the way it ended. And I guess it was all to make a statement about moving beyond this dissecting comic. I'm trying to think of the word. I suddenly lost it. Moving beyond the kind of
the deconstructionism
that's the word,
right? That was Watchmen and that sort of thing, right?
Which is interesting in such a heavily deconstructed comic book,
right? Yeah.
Makes me wonder too. I mean, I didn't really get very far with Wicked and Divine, but was there any deconstruction in that? Or
yeah,
and
that was a big part of the storytelling in that, I would say.
Yeah. So I guess Die, his current major project, isn't so deconstructy. It'd be interesting to see if he's really making a statement like, from now on, I'm not going to do deconstruction.
Right. I don't know. I think he's a really smart writer. I mean, he's not just simply putting out a product. It feels to me like just about everything he does has some greater meaning to it, at least to him.
There's always more something intellectual going on that we may or may not completely pick up on.
I mean, even his commercial stuff like Young Justice and whatnot, there is more going on than just simply, the window dressing is of whatever it is and whatnot.
Right.
So.
There's an intellectual mind behind things always. Yeah. I mean, it was one of my most interesting comics of the year, but I couldn't quite, it was like a slippery fish that I could never quite completely grasp a hold of.
Right. I enjoyed it. I was fine with the ending of it. I really liked issue, what was it, 5 or 4, whatever issue that was, where he's in the black and white
with 5. So it was either 3 or 4. I can't remember.
Where he's hanging out at the bar. That whole,
cool.
That was just really a smart comic in a lot of ways and whatnot. But like I said, I really enjoyed it because, I mean, it felt like he was saying something about stuff and whatnot, but I don't know. It was like, it's one of those comics that I don't know who I would pitch that to. Do you know what I mean? I don't know who I would go. You are somebody that would go, hey, you check this out. You'd enjoy it. Comics is another person. I think that I think you'd have to have a pretty healthy breadth of comics and potentially, God, I'm drawing a blank on this.
Well, you can't read it without having read
Watchmen, right?
It would make no sense at all.
Yeah,
reading Watchmen.
Yeah,
it's totally dependent on the previous work that way.
Right.
Which
So-
was exciting for me because I've read Watchmen many times.
Exactly. So
Isn't that the book that went with Justice League? Is that one you guys are talking about?
yes, yes, you're right.
Oh, okay. I hadn't
Just
heard of any besides that.
It's one of those crossovers you missed, right? Yeah.
It's interesting because Watchmen, I feel like, has almost been commodified in a way that would go against hype. There's going to be this HBO show that's coming out. So I don't know where it takes place within the storytelling, but it's fascinating to me that what it was deconstructing is almost kind of wrapped around to what it was going against.
exactly. It's wrapped around to the non-deconstructed version that's being folded into the DC universe and all of that.
And it doesn't have the same impact that the book did, like when it came out and 15 years after it came out over. It's the whole world of comics has changed because the people who read that when it first came out are the people who are producing books now. So we've been changed by, things like Watchmen and Batman Returns and whatnot. It's completely altered comics, and I mean, at least superhero comics in a sense. And so telling people to read it now, young Fred, who was in the comments a while ago there, Fred, he just read it recently and he's like, okay, yeah, it was fine, but I'll have to read it again maybe sometime because I just didn't get that much out of it. And I don't know that people would get the same out of it now. I just don't know that it's because of what's come since then. It doesn't, don't get me wrong, I still think it's a unique thing in and of itself. But it's a unique thing in and of itself based on when it came out as much as the subject matter, I feel like.
That's interesting because you both probably read it when it was.
Yeah.
Has there been anything that, in your opinion, that has revolutionized since then on that level? Because I almost feel like a lot of people don't understand that, and if you could give them some kind of beacon, like, okay, this is this, but not quite on that level.
I don't know what that would be.
I think the closest is Sandman, which kind of, in a different way, showed us another way that comics could be that most people hadn't thought of at that point.
Yeah.
But recursive storytelling, or if you will.
Right. But anything that's like newer, I don't know what that would be. But at the time, I don't know that I would have told you that I wouldn't have told you that that book was groundbreaking then either.
I would have.
Because
or 8 years older than you when I read it.
Exactly. Right. So so I know that has a, has a different too. I knew it was, don't get me wrong, I knew it was telling me something different. It was a completely different kind of a, thing, and that it was doing something, but not, I wouldn't have been able to tell you that in the that 5-6 years after that, I could go to the local university and there would be a class where they'd be teaching that book.
Yeah.
But I also think that, like I said, I think Dark Knight Returns fundamentally changed Batman forever too. So,
sure. Well, I used to argue with Damien right when I first came on the scene. Oh, Batman had been doing it for a very long time, and then actually reading a lot of older Batman, I realized the point that Damien was making. Like, no, this is fundamental change.
Yeah,
because Batman killed before. Actually, he had guns before. What are you talking about? But I understand now where that. It changed Batman, but it also changed the superhero genre in a lot of ways that I can appreciate now that I didn't appreciate at the time.
But yeah, so I don't know. Like I said, I don't think it's the holy grail that it once was. But I still think it's an important.
See, I thought you were
landmark at superhero comics.
That question.
What's that?
Better. Still better written and better constructed than most comics.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And so I think even at the time, the fact that it was a morally ambiguous universe wasn't as shocking as perhaps Moore wanted it to be, because that had been slowly evolving in comics.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe its popularity made a big jump in the moral ambiguity of superhero comics.
Right.
So like Judas Contract, I think it's like 2 years before that, and that's definitely taking something. Or is it a year? I could look it up, but kind of
somewhat before anyway.
Yeah.
It seemed like there was kind of that in the air, but this kind of blew the door open.
Right.
More than anything else.
I think in part because it was so sort of overwhelmingly well written compared to most comic books of the day.
Right.
So it brought together and jumped forward that evolution that was already happening. It compressed it and made it happen fast.
Right. Well, and I think because they forced him to not use the actual charlatan characters, he had to come, you had to rename them and tweak them a little bit. But then he had the opportunity to basically wreck whatever he wanted to, kind of a thing. Right. And like the Judas Contract, for instance, the Teen Titans Judas Contract, loved that as it came. I mean, absolutely, that was the coolest stuff because me and Longbox Review were reading the Titans when that was coming out and just thought that was the coolest thing and whatnot. You could only take the Teen Titans so far, right? I mean, they were, and don't get me wrong, they were. I mean, there was backstab, there was massive betrayal, and and suicide and murder throughout that stuff and whatnot. That was all, whoa, that seemed big for superhero comics, but because they're a named product, like like most stuff, you can only go so far with it. I mean, that's why we find out that he wanted to use the charlatan characters to have them do all that stuff, and they said, whichever editor at the time went, no, we can't actually take Captain Atom and Blue Beetle and do this horrible stuff with them. We just bought these characters. You can't destroy them in this fashion. Kind of a thing. But
the way it was described to me when I was kind of coming of age is a decade before this comic book was out, Batman was teaming up with Wonder Woman to win a race in a racing car. Like this was taking and really kind of humanizing the humanizing. I don't know if that's the term I'd like to use, but kind of really looking at it for what it was and what it meant to society as a whole.
Yeah.
And I almost recommend people go and read classic comics before they read Watchmen.
Right.
They can kind of get a grasp of what.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like with Fred having read it, I think that if your history of reading comics is the last, like, let's even say the last 10 years, you don't have the same reference point for Watchmen that I think you would if you were reading comics before, if you'd read a lot of comics before Watchmen, kind of a deal. So,
yeah, how it read to me at the time as someone, I guess, what was it, in my late 20s or mid to late 20s, who'd been reading comics a long time, was we'd already watched Alan Moore do some pretty amazing things. And it's like, then he came along in Watchmen and said, you think that was something here?
Right.
He tripled down on these.
Right. Right. You thought Swamp Thing was cool. Right. Look, check this out. Yeah.
So that he could put in so many layers in such a short piece in mainstream comics. I think he threw down a gauntlet, a challenge to writers. Because like we talked about how Vertigo in the 90s was where people really started taking writers seriously. He was saying, okay, I'm as a writer taking this so seriously.
Interesting.
I'm getting way off track. But the amount of effort that went into that writing was so different from all the other comics you were reading. The closest might be someone like Marv Wolfman, who also took his job quite seriously.
Yeah.
But nowhere near as dense and building up so much character and world in so many issues.
Right.
Sorry to take it in the weeds like that. I think you're probably trying to wrap this up, but
that's fine. That's one of the fun things about the show is wherever it goes, it goes. I don't care. So no.
Makes me think of a friend of mine telling me, showing her children the Matrix movies, and they were like, huh? What's the big deal about this?
Right. Right.
Whereas that seemed like a revolution in action movies when that came out.
100%.
Camera work and everything. There was cameras used in that were not used before that movie. So
right.
Yeah. There's my reference point. Thank you.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes. Yeah.
But if you'd been watching John Woo movies before The Matrix, then it wouldn't be quite as revolutionary as for most viewers.
Yeah, sadly, Hong Kong, well, I'm going in the weeds again, up to that point where we were getting kind of the lesser stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
for sure. Alrighty, well, if we are done talking comics for the night, we will call it a night. I appreciate you guys coming on and talking comics. Come back again. As always, I enjoy this. As I said at the beginning of the show, I don't know when it is that YouTube's going to pull the plug on the Hangouts and this process. I'll see what we need to do to make it survive, or what the fix is, if there is one, or whatever. Because I would hate to lose this. Whether you people watching it enjoy it or not, I don't know. But I enjoy being able to be as virtually in the same space as other comic book readers and be able to talk about books and whatnot. So
in the very earliest incarnations before your leadership, wasn't it originally like a Skype thing that was then recorded?
Yes, we recorded it Skype, and then we would just throw it up as a YouTube video, and then just put whatever random.
It was just audio, yeah.
Right, so it's just audio, and yeah, and it's just talking about whatever and whatnot. Which, if I have to do that, I'll do that. Right. But comic books are a visual medium, so Eric keeps telling me podcasts are where it's at and whatnot. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool and all, but it's a comic book, and so I want to be able to show. Not.
I record video on Skype.
What's that?
Can you record video on Skype?
Oh. No, you can only do it with one other person.
Right.
But I've been trying to dip my toes into doing a more recorded, just audio format, and I realized, how do I describe this page,
right,
in something from the 70s per se, without people seeing it? And I don't think I could. I could take a picture, put it up on Twitter, and be like, "This is what I was referring to," at 26 point whatever. I just don't think that would work.
Yeah,
talk over a slideshow that you then put up somewhere.
Yeah.
But like I said at the beginning, there's also, I know that there's Twitch, and somehow you can use that, and you can have multiple people on. I hear if you understand the bells and whistles, you can make a really cool thing, a really cool product out of it and whatnot. So I may have to learn that, and then after the fact, I dump it onto YouTube. But at the same time, I still like YouTube, but I know YouTube has some really dark holes in it that have really tainted it for a lot of viewers and consumers. So, but we'll cross that bridge when we'll get to it. I'll have to do some searching to find out when in the year that's going to end. I mean, are we going to make it to by the end of 2019? It's going to be gone, or what? I don't know, but we'll figure that out. Because I don't know what I'd do with myself if I couldn't waste my Saturday nights sitting here talking comics with people. So,
anyway, band.
Yes. Anyway, I appreciate you guys coming on. I appreciate you people who watched the show live, as always. Anybody who watches it after the fact, thank you very much. And until next time, have a great one, everybody.
Good night.